Empire of Steel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 426 Battleship launched. The weather is getting colder, and the cold wind is blowing cold all over the body, shrinking his neck. Qin Chengming cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, Your Highness, for your good intentions," but before leaving, His Majesty explained that he should return to his life in time. If the lower officials do not dare to delay, they will not stay in Kingzhou any longer. Really? It's a pity. Xiao Ming said he hoped that Qin Chengming could bring the differences of Kingzhou to Chang'an to attract some stupid and rich people to come to Kingzhou for consumption, but this time it seems that there is no chance. Qin Rui was also a little reluctant to hear the words. After all, he was also traveling alone. The court's fleet arrived in the morning and was about to return in the afternoon. Xiao Ming had to take Qin Chengming to the Wei family restaurant for lunch. In the afternoon, he returned to the dock, leaving Qin Rui and Xiao Ming to stare. Qin Rui, since you are going to be an official in Kingzhou in the future, you and I will be monarchs and ministers from now on. Don't be as cynical as before, and you must assist this king to develop the fief. After pondering for a while, Xiao Ming said to Qin Rui. He knew Qin Rui very well. He was very smart, but he didn't do his job properly in the past. This was nothing when he was playing, but if he wanted to achieve something big, he must be told a few words. Your Highness has been thinking too much? Qin Rui has already changed his mind. After all, Qin is also a family man now, no longer when he was young and frivolous. Qin Rui said indifferently he had to admit that the timing of his father's choice was right. Taking advantage of the fact that he came to Kingzhou to bring him, in fact, many smart people in the court were making choices, but they were more decisive since Xiao Wangsuan demoted the second prince to Bezhao for Xiao Ming. Many people instantly understood Xiao Ming's current status in the court, and the courtiers who were close to Xiao Ming wanted to send their children to Kingzhou. One was to show their loyalty. After all, once they arrived in Kingzhou, they were like Proton second. They are reminding political enemies that even if they die, someone will still avenge them, which is a silent deterrent. It's so wonderful. So let's go to Bowen College to study for a while to understand the responsibilities of the Shaofu supervisor. If you are qualified, this king will assign you to the Shaofu supervisor in Kingzhou. Xiao Ming said. Qin Rui nodded, just as Xiao Ming said. Now he and Xiao Ming have a relationship between a monarch and a minister, not a relationship of drinking and eating meat before. Since it was Xiao Ming's arrangement, he was willing to accept it, but when Xiao Ming was about to arrange accommodation for him, he said, "Your Highness, the food and drink in this Wei family restaurant is really good. I want to stay at the Wei family restaurant for a few days." Xiao Ming just took back what he was about to say. He said, "Are you sure? The cheapest room in this Wei family restaurant is 121 nights 100 taels. Qin Rui was frightened, but after a brief hesitation, he said, "Your Highness, Qin has some savings. Since he came to Kingzhou, wouldn't it be a pity not to enjoy it?" Shaking his head, Xiao Ming said, "Whatever you want, if you give money to this king will naturally not refuse. This Wei family restaurant belongs to His Royal Highness." Qin Rui was stunned, unable to resist the attraction of the Wei family restaurant. Qin Rui still went like a moth to the fire. Xiao Ming could not laugh or cry. He could only return to the palace alone. He originally wanted to let him live in the palace for a few days, but now he saved it. However, this also proves how attractive the Weijia restaurant is to these rich and powerful people who are used to living a good life. When he arrived at the gate of the palace, he saw a person waiting outside the gate of the palace. Looking carefully, it was Zhang Liang's son Zhang Kun. At this time, Zhang Kun also saw Xiao Ming. He bowed and said, "His Royal Highness, my father asked me to rush to Kingzhou overnight to report to Your Highness that the battleship of Dengzhou shipyard has been launched. It's all in the water." Xiao Ming exclaimed, "Yes, Your Highness, all of them are in the water. This year, we completed the task assigned by His Highness 1 month earlier than last year." Zhang Kun said happily, "It's really happy to see the door. The shipbuilder of the court has just arrived, and the Galen ship has been launched, so you can set aside a month to build the shipyard." Xiao Ming said happily. Zhang Kun had a strange look when he heard the words. He said to Xiao Ming, "Your Highness, has a craftsman come to the court? Zhang Liang and his son have been in Dengzhou all the time, and they lacked understanding of Kingzhou's affairs, so he told him the news of 30,000 craftsmen, 30,000 people." Zhang Kun was a little stunned when he heard the words, but he continued, Your Highness, can you let Xiao Slave be the supervisor of one of the shipyards, you? It was only then that Xiao Ming realized that something was wrong. In the past, it was the postmaster of the post that brought news, but this time it was Zhang Kundi. Zhang Kun scratched his head, feeling a little embarrassed. He said, "It's Your Highness, now my father and I can't stay in a shipyard." "Why?" Xiao Ming asked in confusion. Zhang Kun sighed. "His Royal Highness, the little slave proposed to add a watertight cabin structure to Galen's ship. I never wanted to be scolded by my father, saying that I am ignorant, and I like to make changes." "Watertight cabin?" Xiao Ming laughed. "This watertight compartment is actually a watertight compartment. Generally, the compartment is divided into compartments that are not interconnected with each other. There are 13 compartments and 8 compartments. This watertight compartment has a great effect on the sinking resistance of the ship. Generally, the ship with a watertight compartment is difficult to sink." Zhang Kun smiled a little embarrassedly. "Your Highness, this may really be a little slave's whims. Your idea is good, but the keel structure of the Galen ship is different from that of ordinary merchant ships, and the watertight cabin is not suitable for the Galen ship," Xiao Ming said with a smile. Zhang Kun heard the words with a disappointed look. "It seems that my father is right. The little slave is really ignorant." Patting Zhang Kun's shoulder, Xiao Ming said with a smile, "It's not a shame to learn if you don't understand. You are still young. It's the time of your studies. Do you want to go to Bowen College to learn shipbuilding? There's real shipbuilding knowledge there." Now that the construction technology of the Galen ship has matured, Xiao Ming began to reserve talents for the next generation of ships, because at that time, not only a drawing will allow craftsmen like Zhang Liang to imitate the shipbuilding knowledge. Zhang Kun wanted to prove himself, but it turned out that he was wrong. At this time, hope rose again in his heart. "Your Highness, if I learn it, can I surpass my father?" "Of course, if you are proficient in the shipbuilding knowledge in the academy, you will definitely be better than your father," Xiao Ming said to himself. Zhang Kun nodded heavily and said, "Little slave is willing to go." Xiao Ming said, "In this case, when this king returns from Dengzhou, you can go to the academy to report. This time the battleship is launched. This king will go to Dengzhou with Yu Yun and other students from the Naval Academy." Chapter 427 The King of Qi. Dengzhou. After learning that all the Galen ships built this year were launched, Xiao Ming informed Yu Yun to go to Dengzhou in different seasons of the year. Yu Yun and the soldiers of the Navy are also conducting different trainings. A month ago, they practiced the operation of warships in Dengzhou. After that, they returned to Bowen College for maritime knowledge training, and selected outstanding ones. As the captain of the subsequent Galen ship after starting from Qingzhou and driving for 3 consecutive days, they arrived at Dengzhou City. Along the way, Yu Yun was not idle, but had been simulating various situations of sea combat with the 14 selected captains. They put the small model of the Galen ship on the deck. 15 belonged to the Qingzhou battleship, and 12 belonged to the Dutch battleship, and responded by constantly changing the tactical formation on both sides. These battleship formations are all from the textbook Naval Tactics of Sails and Battleships, which was written by Xiao Ming Ru in order to avoid the Navy suffering heavy losses due to tactics in the early stage over the past year. Yu Yun has basically been reading this textbook. From the textbook, he has a clear understanding of the naval encounters of sailing warships, and the defeat in the Battle of British warships has made him no longer arrogant but cautious. "Your Highness, we are here. The Dengzhou military port is in front of you," Zhang Kun said at this time, nodding his head. Xiao Ming looked at the military port that had just been completed this year. At this time, 15 warships were moored in the bay of the military port. 3 of the warships were very small, and it could be seen at a glance that they were the first Galen ships. The 3 Galen ships were restored to their former appearance after being repaired. Then Xiao Ming looked to the outermost site and was shocked because there is a huge battleship with 4 decks moored there. When the merchant ships pass by the side of the battleship is like a giant beast that requires everyone to look up. His Royal Highness, this battleship is a first-class sailing battleship. This battleship is 75 meters wide, 20 meters wide, 9 meters draft, and has a displacement of 6,000 tons. It can carry 1,200 soldiers, 120 guns. Zhang Kun looked proud when he introduced it, which is enough to prove their Zhang family's shipbuilding level. If it wasn't for the construction of this giant beast this year, they could have produced more Tier 3 sailing warships. After all, according to the shipbuilding plan of the shipyard, the 3-level sail battleship is the main battleship to be built. The merchant ship continued to move towards the dock, followed by 3 second-level warships, which were 3-deck warships. only slightly smaller than the first-class sailing warships. After the second-class sail warships are 4 third-class warships and 4 fourth-class sail warships, and now these warships are docked in the bay in turn, and the scene is very magnificent. For a time, Xiao Ming was also swayed by his mind. His Royal Highness, this is a second-class warship, which can form a crew of 960. Zhang Kun gushed endlessly. Yu Yun said excitedly, His Royal Highness, it's just the size of this warship that the Dutch lost to us, and it is said that the Dutch have many colonies and their troops are scattered. If the Dutch are defeated this time, the Dutch will not be able to support them at all. That's right, so as long as the Dutch are defeated, the sea area of East Asia will be ours. Yu Yun, this time you must fight a good battle for this king. Whether the King's Hao trade route can be opened is up to you. Xiao Ming said. Yu Yun gritted his teeth and said, the last commander will definitely live up to His Highness's expectations, and the Dutch and the Japanese have always been in close contact as you wish. Xiao Ming smiled lightly. When the merchant ship flying the flag of King Qi entered the bay, it attracted Zhang Liang's attention. At this time, the craftsmen of the shipyard headed by Zhang Liang were all waiting for the merchant ship to dock on the shore. Looking at the pier that is getting closer, Xiao Ming has some sense of accomplishment. This bay is also a deep water port in modern times. It is precisely because of this that he chose the shipyard here and made it a military port of King's Hao. The merchant ship docked, Xiao Ming got off the merchant ship, and Zhang Liang and his party immediately bowed and saluted. No ceremony, the battleship is launched. You are all heroes. This king has asked Pang Changshi to restore the King's Hao household registration for you. Since then, your Zhang family's slave status will be lifted. In this way, this king can be regarded as a corresponding promise. Your Highness. Zhang Liang suddenly raised his head upon hearing this, and Zhang Kun also showed surprise. In the past 2 years, although they have eaten well, dressed well, and lived like normal people, the identity of slaves has always been a shackle on their bodies, because they understand that as long as the identity of slaves is there, they are inferior to others. After 2 years of waiting, they finally arrived at this day. Thank you, Your Highness. Zhang Liang burst into tears. The Zhang family has gone through too many changes over the years. Now, they have finally recovered their former glory. His Royal Highness's promises, the little slave admires it. Zhang Kun was much calmer. He smiled, shaking his head. Xiao Ming said, today is a happy day, so don't cry. Let's appreciate this battleship. Zhang Liang wiped his tears and said, Your Highness is here. The pier extends from the shore to the sea, with a length of 300 meters. These warships are docked on both sides of the pier. Taking Xiao Ming, Zhang Liang first went to the first-class sailing warship and said excitedly, Your Highness, now this warship can go to sea at any time, but the naming of this ship needs to be approved by His Highness. In the era of sail battleships, first-class sails were generally only used in battleships during decisive battles, so first-class sail warships would not follow the fleet around, because first-class sail warships were clumsy and far less flexible than third-class sail warships. However, in terms of firepower, the first-class sailing warship is really hard to match. After pondering for a while, Xiao Ming said, Since that's the case, let's order this battleship to be King Qi. King Qi. Yu Yun said with a smile, This name is good. In the name of His Highness, this battleship will be invincible. Yu Yun's words were exactly what Xiao Ming was looking forward to, and when he heard this, he smiled lightly. There are still 14 battleships left without orders. With a clever idea, Xiao Ming said, the remaining battleships will be ordered by the fiefs of the city. The 6 states will be ignored, and the 16 states of Yan'an will be added. Yes, Your Highness. Zhang Liang wrote it down. After all, everyone climbed the Big Mac through the rope ladder hanging down from the battleship. After boarding the battleship, Yu Yun and the students immediately rushed to the various parts of the battleship excitedly, eager to set sail for a long voyage. Now His Royal Highness, now this battleship is short of artillery. When will the artillery come? Yu Yun asked. Xiao Ming pondered for a while and said, At this time, this king has informed the military workshop, and now the artillery and ammunition are being loaded into the King's Hao wharf, and it will be soon. The two were talking when they saw another group of people on the pier, but they were Deng's Hao Governor Yang Qinggai and Governor Yu Qinggai. Chapter 428 Emergencies. P.S. There are only 3 chapters tonight, and there is another chapter around 10 o'clock. The snails can't stand up to stay up late and code words continuously. I have some headaches and fever in the past 2 days, so I can only insist on writing another chapter. Snails, remember I owe you a chapter this time. When the snail gets better, the snail will make up for it. Sorry, please understand Your Highness. Your Highness, Yang Chang'ai trotted all the way towards the first-class sailing warship. With a trace of anxiety on his face, Xiao Ming and Yu Yun were excited. Seeing Yang Chang'ai looking at each other like this, they had some ominous premonition in their hearts. Before reaching the first-class battleship, Yang Chang'ai also climbed up. He didn't seem in the mood to care about the battleship, but said, "Your Highness, something has happened," and fishermen from Dashi village came to report that they saw a group of strange-looking people when they were fishing at Sea People, and their ships are somewhat similar to Argalan strange people. Xiao Ming and Yu Yun were shocked. Xiao Ming asked, "What do they look like?" They were all tall, with red hair, and they were shooting at them with muskets. 3 fishermen were injured while they were fishing, and they were wearing a tricolor flag. What color is the flag? The top is red, the middle is white, and the bottom is blue. Yang Chang'ai recalled what the fisherman said. "His Royal Highness, there is no doubt that this is the Dutch?" Yu Yun said nervously, "If they discover our military port, it will be troublesome. The Dutch have just defeated the King of Chu and come to Dengzhao at this time. It must be a bad visitor." Xiao Ming's face was a little gloomy. The distance from Ryukyu Island to Dengzhao was 1,500 kilometers. The Dutch battleship appeared in Dengzhao at this time. Naturally not for tourism. There is only one explanation. There is something related to the interests of the Dutch, and he believes that the Dutch are not passing by King Chu. Xiao Ming recited the name lightly. Li Wei told him about the King of Chu receiving the Dutch envoy. He did not know what the King of Chu and the Dutch said, but after defeating the King of Chu, the Dutch appeared in Dengzhao. There must be some tricks in it. After thinking about it for a while, Xiao Ming suddenly realized something. Li Wei said that the Dutch forced the King of Chu to buy arquebuses when they defeated the fleet of the King of Chu. In the past, the King of Chu wanted to buy it himself, but now he was forced to do so. It must have been the King of Chu who told the Dutch. He has cheaper arquebus purchases at this time. He will definitely speak out about himself. After clarifying his thoughts, Xiao Ming said, "Now immediately send coastal fishing boats to investigate the situation at sea and monitor the location of the Dutch. Also, few people know the location of the bay, and the Dutch do not know, but just in case, Yu Yun, you are now leading 3 warships to guard the periphery of the bay." "Yes, Your Highness." Yu Yun's expression turned cold, and now only the 3 previous battleships were loaded with artillery. If the Dutch fill the bay, the newly launched warships will be finished. For him, these warships are his life, and he must not let this happen. After arranging these 2 events, Xiao Ming was no longer in the mood to continue watching the battleship. He and Yang Chang'ai got off the ship together and walked towards the shore. It is clear, but some Japanese pirates in Dengzhao City are very familiar, and in order to prevent accidents, the Dengzhao army will immediately enter the city to defend. Yi Qinggai and complained bitterly, "His Royal Highness, these Dutch people have muskets. Now the Dengzhao army has still bows and arrows and swords. How can they fight the Dutch?" Frowning his brows, Xiao Ming said, "This king knows that you generals have opinions on this king's preference for the Kingzhao army, but now is not the time to say this. It is not that we will not equip you with muskets, but the production of muskets takes time. After the Yaozhao army, you will be the Dengzhao army." Yi Qinggai smirked when Xiao Ming saw through his thoughts at a glance. His Royal Highness is really insightful. You can see the thoughts of the last general at a glance. Okay, only with His Highness's words, the soldiers of the Dengzhao army will feel at ease. The soldiers will be summoned into the city now. Xiao Ming nodded, but he really didn't expect the Dengzhao army to fight the Dutch. After all, the Dutch at this stage were not something that the Dengzhao army could deal with, and there was no cavalry in Dengzhao. Infantry against infantry, his plate armor, there is no advantage either. Besides that, you immediately sent Xingai to Kingzhao, and asked Niu Ben to immediately send Kingzhao troops to Dengzhao. Xiao Ming continued. Yi Qinggai nodded and went ashore. He immediately urged the horse to go in the direction of Dengzhao camp. Yang Chang'ai said at this time, "Your Highness, Dengzhao is so dangerous now, please do not enter the city, please stay in the bay, otherwise, if your Highness makes a mistake, the lower official will die." Xiao Ming said, "Everything is still unclear now. Don't be so pessimistic for the time being. The Dutch will be afraid when they know that this king has a musket. By the way, where's Dashi village?" Yang Chang'ai said. "Dashi village is in the opposite direction of the bay, about 150 miles away from Dengzhao City. In that case, the Dutch fleet should be able to resist the beaches outside Dengzhao." Xiao Ming was a little worried. This bay is 30 miles away from Dengzhao, hidden behind 2 huge reefs. The 2 reefs rising into the sky are like the gates of the bay. Speaking of which, this harbor is still very hidden. After arranging the immediate tasks, Yang Changai immediately returned to Dengzhou City. Now Dengzhou City needs him to sit in charge, while Xiaoming stays in the bay and waits for the change. Now he can only pray that Chen Qi's artillery and King Zhao army will be in place soon, otherwise the one-year preparation may be in vain. At any time that night, Xiaoming stayed at the military port. At noon the next day, the scouts of the Dengzhou army came to the news that the Dutch fleet was docked in the sea just north of Dengzhou City. About 1,000 people were wearing gray military uniforms and carrying Dutch soldiers with muskets took a boat to the beach at the same time. About 2,000 Japanese pirates followed the Dutch ashore. Under the guidance of the Japanese, the Dutch were heading towards Dengzhou City. Japanese pirates and the Dutch? The situation that Xiaoming most wanted to see appeared in the era of great colonization. Western countries never ruled the colonies by their own power. Because there were naturally natives who were willing to be lackeys in the colonies to assist them in their rule. This is the same as barbarian rule. The news he got said that there were 10,000 Dutch garrison troops, but Xiaoming guessed that the real Dutch would not exceed 3,000. Now this news proves his guess from the side. This is good news for him, but there is also bad news. Now it seems that the Dutch are focusing on supporting the Japanese, and with the Japanese as urine, the Dutch must be very happy at this time. Otherwise, it is impossible for the Dutch to appear outside the city of Dengzhou with the Japanese pirates 4,000. Xiaoming calculated the strength of the Dengzhou army. Since Jiangjiang was established here, he has expanded the Dengzhou army, and now the number of the Dengzhou army is 10,000. It's just that Xiaoming doesn't have self-confidence now that 10,000 people are fighting against 4,000 pure firearms troops. Chapter 429 History. Rode grabbed a handful of white sands from the beach and let the sand slip through the gaps between his fingers. Looking at the direction where the sand drifted away, Rode muttered softly. North wind behind him. The small boat responsible for transporting the soldiers kept going back and forth to transport the soldiers from the boat to the beach. In the distance, 10 battleships were arranged in a line, and he could see Claire sitting on the deck blowing the sea breeze. Since the Battle of Qiantang, Claire has been brooding about the news of the King of Chu. So after repairing and replenishing the ammunition, they set off to Dengzhou, ready to explore the truth of this another vassal king of the Great Yu Kingdom. It's not that Claire is sensitive, but that they need to grasp the real situation of the countries surrounding the sea area. In fact, their warships arrived here 80 years ago and established colonies on what is now Ryukyu Island, but at that time the Dutch were competing with the British for maritime supremacy, and there were 6 major battles in 30 years. Afterwards, they eventually lost to the British. At that time, the Netherlands was at its weakest. They were defeated by pirates in the sea area before they could gain a firm foothold. However, they never forgot this rich land. After more than 10 years of recuperation, they came back here and recaptured it. Ryukyu Island, and has ruled for 40 years. However, like the previous records, this largest country in East Asia is still not worth mentioning. He remembered that the first group of diplomatic missions trying to establish diplomatic relations with a Great Yu country once described the Great Yu country as follows: our governor's gift became a tribute in Dao Kingdom, and it was embezzled by local officials in Guangzhou. The officials of Dao Kingdom lied about our arrival here, and tore up what we wanted to give to the Emperor of Dao Kingdom letters, and eventually drove us out of the country to cover up the tribute. The Great Yu Kingdom is a mysterious country to us, but behind the veil of mysteries a weak and depraved country. The officials here are corrupt, and a class equivalent to the European aristocracy rules here, but unlike the European aristocracy, the class here called the noble clan only cares about their own interests and ignores their own behavior to their own country. It will cause huge damage and hidden dangers. The officials here are ignorant and arrogant, corrupt. The people live in dissatisfaction with the officials. They are as weak and incompetent as the natives we conquered. The Japanese and the Filipinos are braver than them, and this country is only rustling in the face of the barbaric tribes of the north. Trembling, there is no trace of the noble spirit of our Europeans who will fight every enemy, which is enough to support my point of view. At the same time, the emperors and officials of this country are not nationalists. They are always unbelievably generous to foreigners, but unbearably cruel to their own people. Great King, if you are willing to send troops, as we conquered the natives of America, we will surely defeat this country and turn it into our colony. Recalling this record, Rhodes raised his brows. At least in the south, he found that the description of the mission did not exaggerate in the slightest, and even beautified the country the King of Chu they came into contact with was such a king. Although Chu was very rich, the wealth was in the hands of the gentry, and the people were still very poor. But just when they thought that the whole of the Great Yu Kingdom was like this, the words of the King of Chu aroused their doubts, because a flintlock spear appeared in this backward and ignorant country. And after the defeat, the king of Chu even said that the king of Qi also built a hot air balloon. This made them very surprised and horrified. Although hot air balloons have been eliminated by hydrogen balloons in Europe, they are still shocked that hot air balloons will appear in this place because it means that a civilization that is different from other places in the Great Yu Kingdom is rising here, and that's where their fear comes from, being able to create arquebuses that, with the population of this country, they can easily defeat them. After all, it is already very difficult for them to maintain a military presence in East Asia and simply cannot support a large-scale war. It is also for this reason that they are going to Deng Zhao, or even King Zhao. Once they find out the details of this King Qi, they will decide whether to establish trade relations with King Qi, or to eliminate this threat in the bud. After all, the Dutch have lost too many colonies, and they don't want to lose this sea again. Deng Zhao City is 20 miles ahead. While Rhodes was stunned, a Japanese man walked up to him and pointed forward. Rhodes glanced at this Japanese man. His name was Sakai. He was a Japanese pirate in the sea area. Since they established a trade point in Nagasaki, Kyushu Island in the Japanese country, they have been doing business with the Japanese country for more than 30 years. Relationship. These Japanese pirates looked like pirates to outsiders, but they knew in their hearts that these Japanese pirates were just soldiers sent by the Japanese daimyo to loot wealth. Under their education, the Japanese people mastered the production technology of matchlock guns earlier than the Daewoo nation, and over the years, as the Japanese nation used matchlock guns to arm the army, the Japanese nation's ambitions gradually expanded. However, for the Dutch, the Japanese state was still respectful, which made them less worried about the Japanese state becoming stronger, and the foreign expansion of the Japanese country is not without benefits for them. At least they can sell more materials to the Japanese country. Mr. Sakai, please lead the way ahead. After all, we lack understanding here. Rhodes said. Sakai nodded, his eyes swept over the bayonet-mounted flintlock on the Dutch soldier, and then he looked at the 6-pounder field gun that was being transported ashore, which was mounted between two wheels and was very convenient to transport. Turning his head, these dangerous weapons made his eyes hide a trace of greed, and he said, "Okay, Mr. Rhodes, as you wish, our army will go ahead," said. Sakai began to gather 3,000 soldiers and set off for Deng Zhao City in a neat column. Each of these Japanese soldiers had arquebuses on their backs and ammunition pouches hanging around their waists, which were the way the Dutch gave them to fight after the Japanese army. Rhodes commanded the Dutch soldiers ashore. 1,000 infantry soldiers walking behind the Japanese with their guns, and behind the infantry artillery was chaining 6 field guns behind the horses following the infantry. The artillery also wanted to advance to Deng Zhao City. The distance of 20 miles was not very far. 2 hours later, they saw the city of the Great Yu Kingdom surrounded by city walls. At this time, Rhodes picked up the binoculars and looked at the soldiers on guard at the top of the city, and suddenly laughed. "Is this plate armor? It's interesting." Chapter 430, The Siege of the City. Yu Qingyan looked solemnly at the army outside Deng Zhao City. The front of the army is the Japanese, and behind the Japanese is the red-haired, blue-eyed, high-nosed Dutchman looking at the rifles on the Japanese soldiers and the Dutch soldiers. He felt depressed for a while. Since King Zhao was equipped with muskets, a powerful weapon, were known to the generals of the fief, and when they cooperated with the King Zhao army to fight, they also saw the power of the musket, so they had lingering fears about the musket. Now that the 4,000-strong artillery force appeared outside Deng Zhao City, he was naturally a little nervous, especially when he saw that there were 6 artillery pieces in this army. But one thing is fortunate. Today, there are artillery pieces at the head of Deng Zhao City. After the shipyard chose to be here, 36 pieces of artillery pieces were successively shipped from King Zhao. Now these cannons are the only firearms in their hands, although they are a little insignificant compared to the miles of city walls under the city. Rhodes' face changed quickly after laughing at the soldiers on the city wall, because they quickly discovered the artillery at the head of the city. It seems that King Chu didn't lie. This King Qi is really different. Rhodes' expression gradually changed compared to Rhodes. Sakai's performance seemed a bit unscrupulous. He said to Rhodes, "Ambassador Rhodes, now it's time to show these soldiers of the Great Yu Kingdom some great looks." Saying that, Sakai ordered the soldiers to form 3 teams and prepare to attack slow. Rhodes said bluntly, they were not fools. They couldn't rashly provoke the enemy without determining the enemy's true strength. Both he and Claire insist on this. Their real purpose is trade, and they don't want to build a strong enemy in this place, and the long voyage from the Dutch mainland is also destined that they can only fight alone here, and if they fail, they will have to withdraw from this sea area. The bloodthirsty smile on Sakai's face froze, and he said incomprehensibly, "Ambassador Rhodes, Aren't we here to occupy Dengzhou City? No, we need to talk first. If this King Qi is as weak as King Chu, we can turn this place into the next supply point. If he is strong, we need to be careful. Rhodes said seriously. Sakai smiled contemptuously. Ambassador Rhodes, it is clear that the great Yu country is very weak now. We Yamada daimyo can easily defeat this country. The army here does not yet use firearms, and our soldiers are generally equipped with arquebuses. Guns, of course. If you can hand over the manufacturing technology of flintlock guns and field guns to us, it will be easier for us to defeat the great Yu kingdom. Rhodes looked at Sakai vigilantly. The current Japanese country is undergoing changes that are not very friendly to them. After they introduced the arquebus manufacturing technology to the Japanese country has equipped a large number of equipment in just 30 years. Matchlock gun. And after the Civil War, an ambitious daimyo, Yamada Nobunaga, dominated. In his view, Yamada Nobunaga was extremely aggressive and was formulating a huge plan to conquer neighboring countries. In his view, the former Japanese country is becoming more and more dangerous, so that they have to compromise with the Japanese country everywhere in order to maintain the trade in East Asia. Today war is your East Asian country's business. What we Dutch people need is trade. This time we just need to figure out why the Day Congress made arquebuses. This is also the purpose of your coming here. Rhodes' tone became a little more serious, as if it is the Japanese who are to blame for leaking the secret of the arquebus. Sakai had a rosacea. At this time, his nose turned red because of his anger. He defended, we are not fools. All craftsmen will be monitored, they can't leak their technology, but you Dutch people sold matchlock guns to the King of Chu and Dao Kingdom for business. Duming is already very unhappy about this. If you Dutch people still want to be in the sea area to trade, we have to abide by our rules. Mr. Sakai, pay attention to your words. Don't forget, without our Dutch people, your Japanese country would not have achieved today's achievements at all. We brought you European science and technology. Rhodes said angrily. Sakai looked dismissive again. They understood that the Dutch were weak. In fact, the Dutch had become a second-rate country in the West, but despite this, they still needed the Dutch to bring them more goods. Yes, Ambassador Rhodes, I will listen to you today. Sakai waved his hand, and the Japanese soldier put away the gun in his hand with a hum. Rhodes walked forward. One of the reasons why he tried to negotiate with the King of Qi was also to contain the gradually powerful Japanese country. Now the Japanese countries are gradually becoming arrogant. They need another force in East Asia to compete with the Japanese countries, so that they can maintain their presence in East Asia for a long time. Originally, this candidate was the King of Chu, but the longer they got along, the more clear that the King of Chu only wanted the throne of the great Yu kingdom, and didn't care about things outside the country. Who is coming? Please report quickly. Yu Kingayan looked at the Dutchman who was walking forward at this time. The artilleryman had already lit the torch, ready to shell the uninvited guests at any time. My name is Rhodes, and I'm the Dutch ambassador to East Asia. Rhodes came to the city and said, we hope to meet your King Qi. Please bring this news to your king. We don't mean to offend. What Rhodes? What ambassadors? I don't understand this, but since you want to see His Royal Highness King Qi, why do you need to bring so many people here? Why do you want to see our highness? You are going to invade our city. Yu Kingayan said angrily. Although the equipment is not as good as the Dutch in the city, Yu Kingayan did not show a hint of cowardice. In the past 2 years, the army of each state is shaping the army's soul, and my honor is the spirit of loyalty deep into the hearts of every general. I would rather die in battle than give way. Rhodes looked at the soldiers behind him. The reason why they came with the fleet and soldiers was naturally to show their strength, so that they could get more bargaining chips on the negotiating table. You are wrong. These soldiers are just to protect our safety. In order to show my sincerity, I can enter the city alone to interview your King Qi. Rhodes continued. Originally, he had enough confidence, but after seeing the artillery on the city wall, he had to be more cautious. Yu Kingayan rolled his eyes. He deliberately exaggerated the number of days and said, we can inform His Royal Highness King Qi, but King Zhao is 6 days away from here. You must wait. Chapter 431, Intimidation by Strength. A gust of sea breeze blew from the sea mixed with a hint of salty and wet taste. Yu Kingayan's words made Rhodes silent. Whether to wait for 6 days was a difficult question, because he knew that 6 days would be enough time for reinforcements to arrive here, and once the reinforcements arrive, it is impossible to predict whether the owner of this land chooses to talk or fight them. It's just that there are not many options now. The artillery at the head of the city has proved the specialness of this place. He must know this place in time to formulate the next strategy, so he said, "Okay, we are willing to wait 6 days. I hope I can see King Key in 6 days." After speaking, Rhodes waved his hand and instructed the Dutch army to retreat back. "Ambassador Rhodes, are we going to withdraw to the sea?" Sakai asked puzzledly, looking at the Dutch soldiers who were starting to evacuate to the beach. "Yes, our purpose here is not to fight, but to figure out the problem of the arquebus, and the artillery at the head of the city proves that this place is very dangerous, and we can't take the risk to provoke an unknown enemy," said Rhodes. Hearing this, Sakai shrugged, but muttered in his heart, "Coward." Although he was dissatisfied, Sakai retreated with the Dutchman's beach. Before leaving, he glanced at Deng Zhao City unwillingly. If he seized this city and established a stronghold, Yamada Daimyo's plan would be easier to implement. The army under the city withdrew to the sea, and Yer breathed a sigh of relief. He immediately sent someone to the bay to inform King Key of this incident. "The Dutch want to see the king." Yang Chengai arrived at the bay with a scout. "Yes, Your Highness, we said that His Highness will arrive after 4 days, and the Dutch really evacuated." In the opinion of the official, the purpose of the Dutch is really not to fight us. Yang Chengai said. Xiao Ming nodded and said, "This is a wise choice. It seems that this group of Dutchmen is just trying to find out the truth of this king." In Xiao Ming's view, it was precisely because of their weakness that the Dutch would rashly fight against the King of Chu to stop the King of Chu's military adventure. The King of Chu could not see through this, but he saw it very well. Not to mention the era of sailing warships, even in the era of steamships, it was extremely difficult to project troops across half the world. Therefore, the Dutch know very well that they will not have reinforcements, and if they fail in East Asia, they will completely withdraw from this area. Yang Chengai had no idea about the Dutch, or about the Netherlands at all, and he continued, "Your Highness, no matter what the Dutch are thinking, as long as the King Zhao army arrives, we don't have to be afraid of them." "That's right. Since we are waiting for the King Zhao army to arrive at this king, we will go to meet the Dutch ambassador to see what they want." Xiao Ming said, "The arrival of the Dutch is the first collision between him and a foreign civilization." Deciding to meet with the Dutch, Xiao Ming stayed in the bay and waited for reinforcements to arrive. The next day, 20 merchant ships loaded with artillery entered the military port. This was the first batch of artillery shipped from the military workshop. When the artillery arrived, Yu Yun was very excited. He immediately transported the artillery and ammunition to the battleship and equipped it with his soldiers. Without the artillery, the Galen ship is just a toothless tiger. Now the artillery is on board Tiger II. This time, the first batch of naval guns was sent, with a total of more than 300 guns, and 2 batches of naval guns will arrive one after another. But even these 300 guns are enough to arm 5 or 6 small Galen ships, which is enough. In the next few days, the artillery of the military workshop arrived in batches, and the 12 Galen ships were successively equipped with naval guns. Niu Ben also led the King Zhao army to the bay with the merchant ships. "His Royal Highness, we can go to war at any time after the naval gun was hoisted," Yu Yun said excitedly. At this time, Niu Ben basically understood the source of the crisis. He said, "Your Highness, this war and supply is the top priority. And now this Dutch expedition can't be our opponent. We only need to win the Ryukyu." This is the Dutch cut off supplies, and they were not far from defeat. The King Zhao army with live ammunition arrived. Xiao Ming no longer worried about the safety of Deng Zhao City. He said, "Now is not the time to start a war. The Netherlands has come this far for money. They will not rashly go to war with us. This time the Dutch ambassador, that's what this negotiation is about. Just show the Dutch what we can do and they'll understand what choice to make. His Royal Highness is preparing to subdue without fighting." Niu Ben laughed heartily. "Your Highness is still thoughtful. As long as we can talk about it, why start a war?" Xiao Ming smiled and nodded, and said, "Let's go. Today is the day set. We'll go meet the Dutch ambassador." After leaving the temporary residence in the military port, Xiao Ming and Niu Ben headed for Deng Zhao City. In the military port, 10,000 King Zhao soldiers were assembling. They were lined up in pairs with their shiny flintlock guns on their backs. Niu Ben gave an order, and the soldiers followed Xiao Ming and his party to Deng Zhao City, and Yu Yun and other naval soldiers also boarded the battleship, ready to attack at any time. As agreed, Rhodes arrived outside Deng Zhao City on time. At this time, unlike last time, this time he was allowed to enter Deng Zhao City. Entering Deng Zhao City, Rhodes quickly showed contempt in his eyes. In his eyes, this city was much poorer than any city in the Netherlands. However, his contempt soon turned into panic. When he arrived in the middle of the city, a large number of soldiers carrying muskets suddenly poured into the city wall from the west gate of the city towards the east gate. "God, this is a flintlock gun. How is this possible?" Rhodes couldn't believe his eyes. He rubbed his eyes and looked again. There was no mistake. The firearms these soldiers carried were indeed flintlock guns. At this moment, Rhodes' heart sank. Although flintlock guns have long been popularized in the army in Europe, the appearance of flintlock guns in such a backward region is enough to shock him. Just when he was surprised, there was a sudden sound of hoofs, and a group of people riding horses appeared in front of him. Ambassador Rhodes, the person in front of you is Our Royal Highness King Ki. Your King Guyan said loudly. Rhodes looked at the young man at the head and couldn't believe it. Such a young man turned out to be the king of a piece of land. He took off his hat and performed an aristocratic manner to Xiaoming, and said, "Dear His Royal Highness King Ki, I salute you on behalf of Count Claire." Xiaoming's eyes rolled around Rhodes. He was a typical European and dressed more elegantly. At this time, he got off his horse and said to Rhodes, "Ambassador Rhodes, I heard that you want to see this king. I don't know what you Dutch have to do with this king. Do you want to sign an unequal treaty with you like this king and the king of Chu?" If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 432, 3 Bottom Lines. The solemn and majestic soldiers made Rhodes feel a little uneasy, and the first sentence of the young King Ki caused a cold sweat on Rhodes' back. He didn't know much about the Great Yu Kingdom, and he didn't understand what purpose the King Ki said this sentence for revenge? Or is it just a test? After being silent for a while, Rhodes said cautiously, "Dear His Royal Highness King Ki, I think the war with the King of Chu was not initiated by us, but because the King of Chu wanted to monopolize the maritime trade for a long time. At this time, everyone was outside the Dengzhou government office." Xiaoming sneered and said, "Ambassador Rhodes, let's talk in the house. I know very well about you Dutch people." Rhodes was startled. He followed Xiaoming into the palace. When everyone was seated, the officer served tea. Xiaoming took a sip and said, "You have a total of 12 warships in East Asia. Ryukyu and Nagasaki are your 2 supply points in this area. On Ryukyu Island, you built 2 warships. There are castles. One is at the southern end of Ryukyu Island, the other is at the northern end of Ryukyu Island. There are 10,000 garrison real Dutch soldiers and more than 3,000 people. The rest are local natives of Ryukyu Island, including the Japanese pirates you hired." Of course, Xiaoming didn't say a word. The more cold sweat on Rhodes' body. He looked at Xiaoming in disbelief and said, "Are you investigating us?" "Yes, this king is investigating you, just as you are investigating this king," Xiaoming said calmly. Rhodes opened his mouth in surprise. His thoughts were a little confused now. Facing the King of Qi, he couldn't be as calm as the King of Chu, because the young vassal king in front of him seemed to have seen through him. "Let's talk about the purpose of your trip." Seeing Rhodes' shocked expression, Xiaoming changed the subject. His goal had been achieved, just to deter Rhodes. After swallowing, Rhodes said, "Dear His Royal Highness King Ki, we are here to establish a long-term foreign trade relationship with His Royal Highness and seek partners." "Foreign trade relations? Partners?" Xiaoming sneered. He said, "Bombarding our merchant ships in the Great Yu Kingdom and occupying our coastal shipping routes. Is this your foreign trade relations?" When Rhodes heard the words, he didn't know how to explain it. Originally, they were looking at the Great Yu country with the eyes of the Native Americans, and they never put this seemingly strong but actually very weak country in their eyes. But now things have taken an unexpected turn, and there is clearly a very strong force in the north of the country. If it were as close as America, he wouldn't be so worried, because the homeland army would provide them with support, but now they were thousands of miles away, so their people with the same weapons became dangerous. "His Royal Highness King Ki, I think this is a misunderstanding. We only attacked King Chu's merchant ships, not other merchant ships. I know you colonists very well." Before Rhodes could explain, Xiaoming interrupted Rhodes because Rhodes was obviously lying, staring sharply at Rhodes. Xiaoming continued, "In North America you slaughter the local indigenous people. In Africa you buy and sell black slaves. In South Asia you loot spices and various raw materials. Your hands are covered in blood, and now you point the butcher knife at after the king's country. You know that my country is in a weak and fragmented state. So you want to impose your trade hegemony on my country. You, how do you know about America and Africa?" Rhodes can no longer be described as surprised. The flintlock gun has subverted their understanding of this King Ki, and now the knowledge of this King Ki shocked him even more. He had spoken to a lot of people from the Great Yu Kingdom, and no one knew about things outside the Great Yu Kingdom. To him, it was a closed country, but now this King Key completely broke his cognition. This king not only knows America and Africa, but also where you are in the Netherlands? Between France and the United Kingdom, your Dutch life must be unsatisfactory. There was a hint of mockery at the corner of Xiao Ming's mouth. No matter how the Dutch were in Europe, the current Dutch were colonists to him. Rhodes' psychological defense has completely collapsed, and the unknown is terrifying, and now he is facing an unknown. Respected His Royal Highness King Key, please believe in our sincerity. We did come with the original intention of establishing trade relations. Rhodes said with difficulty. In the age of great voyages, no war is just. At this time, we rely on fists to speak. Just as the Dutch colonized Ryukyu and occupied trade routes, they were all supported by forces. The so-called truth is only within the range of artillery. The winner is qualified to formulate the rules of the game, and for Xiao Ming, it is time for him to formulate the trade rules in the East Asian region. So he said, it is okay to establish trade, but the first, you must hand over Ryukyu Island to this king. Second, the trade routes in East Asia belong to this king. Third, Deng Zhao will be your only trade point. If you agree to these 3 items, this king will agree to establish a relationship with you. Trade, how can that be? Rhodes suddenly stood up from his chair because of his anger, and the Dutch have always made rules for these indigenous countries. When will it be the natives' turn to make rules? What's more, this rule will completely turn the Dutch from a trade protagonist into vassal, which they cannot tolerate. Nothing is impossible. East Asia is our territory, and the rules here should be made by us. You Dutch are just outsiders, and you should obey the rules. Moreover, Ryukyu belongs to the country of Daewoo. You country's territory. This is already an act of aggression, and this king has the right to ask you to return the Ryukyu Island. His Royal Highness King Key, your request is too much. We will not agree to any of these 3 items, especially Ryukyu. This is not your land. Now it belongs to the Netherlands. Rhodes said angrily. Ryukyu belongs to the Great Yu Kingdom. Xiao Ming's expression turned cold. He had lost patience with this group of robbers. It seemed that the Dutch had not realized what would happen to them. I don't think we have anything to talk about. Rhodes stood up. At this time, as you wish. Xiao Ming said firmly, because this is also his bottom line. He must take back Ryukyu, and he must take back the trade route. With a cold snort, Rhodes got up and walked out, followed by the accompanying people. His Royal Highness, these barbarians have always been fearful but not virtuous. No matter how much they say, it is not as effective as a war. Moreover, the Dutch and the Japanese made peace, which is very unfavorable to us. The Japanese outside the city walls are all armed with muskets. Ben looked serious at this time. Xiao Ming nodded. In contemporary times, the Japanese country in the 16th century was once a world-class gun-making center. Data shows that the Japanese country at that time once produced 300,000 muskets. Although subjectively he does not want to see the Japanese country, objectively Xiao Ming has to admit that the Japanese country is a strong opponent and should not be underestimated. Because of this, he wants to cut off the exchanges between the Dutch and the Japanese country to prevent more Western technology from flooding into the Japanese country. Chapter 433 Fanaticism. Outside the city, Rhodes returned to his army with a gloomy face. Ambassador Rhodes, it seems that your talk has collapsed. I have already said that this Great Yu country is arrogant and ignorant. It is better to use guns to reason with them. Sakai said lazily, but it's too late. We no chance. Rhodes snorted coldly. Damn, God knows how these King Key masters the manufacturing technology of muskets, but what you said is true. This King Key is too arrogant and ignorant. They think they have mastered muskets. Can technology defeat us Dutch at sea? Yes, let's teach them a lesson at sea. Sakai glanced at the soldiers who kept coming up from the city. These soldiers aimed their guns at them, and now they will lose the battle. Rhodes turned his head and glanced in the direction of Deng Zhao City. He said, I have to go back and report this to Earl Clare. The 3 conditions that King Key demanded are intolerable to us Dutch people. After all, he and Sakai left Deng Zhao City with the army. At this time, Xiao Ming had already climbed up the city wall, frowning at the equipment of the Dutch army and the 6-pound field gun. In any era, the equipment of a country's army is enough to tell how rich a country is. Now the Dutch soldiers in Deng Zhao City are all wearing leather boots, high hats, and gray cotton clothes, which seem to be the standard Dutch military uniforms, which proves the advanced textile industry of the Europeans. The flintlock guns held by the soldiers are also shiny in the sun, and the steel alone is enough to reflect the current advanced steel technology in Europe. On the other hand, The 6-pounder field guns towed by high war horses are evidence of the current equipment of European armies of 2 years ago. This army brought by the Dutch was enough to easily take Deng Xiao City, putting away the binoculars. Xiao Ming said to Niu Ben, "It's time for Yu Yun to go out. These Dutch people will not compromise until they have seen our battleship." Niu Ben nodded and immediately sent a scout to the bay to inform Yu Yun. After coming down from the city wall, Xiao Ming said to Yang Chengai, "The location of Deng Xiao will be very important in the future. From now on, you will start building coastal defense batteries to prevent the enemy from attacking us from the sea." Coastal defense battery? Yang Chengai showed a confused look, which was beyond his cognition. Xiao Ming said, "You don't need to understand what a coastal defense battery is. People from the construction battalion will come here to build it. You just need to cooperate. Simply put, this type of battery is for attacking warships at sea, understand?" "Yes, Your Highness." Yang Chengai nodded. In the past, the most important threat was the north. Xiao Ming naturally wanted to concentrate all resources in the north to defend against the barbarians, but now the threat from the sea is becoming more and more serious, so he must strengthen the coastal defense of Deng Xiao and strengthen the Deng Xiao army. Although the Deng Xiao army is not yet equipped with firearms, Yi Qingyan often goes to King Xiao for training. Just hand over the firearms to the Deng Xiao army, and your Qingyan can train a firearms unit. His Royal Highness, shall we go after him now? Yi Qingyan couldn't help but ask when he saw Xiao Ming walking out of the city. "No, let's see what the Dutch look like when they see our fleet." Xiao Ming smiled. Niu Ben and Yi Qingyan looked at each other and laughed maliciously. The thought of Yu Yun's battleships covered in artillery was frightening. An hour later, Rhodes led the army to the sea, and they returned to the battleship in a small boat. "Count Claire, I think our peace talks have failed. King Qi proposed that we the Dutch cannot tolerate the bottom line. 2 of these 3 bottom lines are enough to give us reasons to start a war." Rhodes said. During the time that Rhodes went ashore, Claire had been waiting on the battleship, pinching the curled beard. Claire asked, "What conditions?" Rhodes said Xiao Ming's original words at this time, and Claire's face became worse and worse with Rhodes' words. He said, "This stupid King Qi, doesn't he know that a colony is a continuation of a country's territory? His demands are simply waging war on us." "Respect Count Claire, that's why I chose to refuse, not to mention colonies. This trade route is the lifeline of our Dutch. For the route we go to war with the Spaniards, the British go to war, the French go to war, we Dutch are fearless." Rhodes said impulsively. Claire patted Rhodes on the shoulder. "You did a good job. Whoever made such a request to us Dutch should humiliate him severely." Sakai's eyes wandered back and forth on Rhodes and Claire. With a smile on his mouth, he has been a pirate at sea for many years, and he has also traveled a lot with a Dutch pirate, so he is very familiar with the behavior of this group of Europeans. In his view, these Europeans had a feverish, adventurous mood, underpinned by the wealth of the world. Nothing can stop these mad Europeans for looting their wealth, because they are more mad than pirates, unless they are defeated, just like the Europeans he knew. Rhodes and Claire were in a frenzy after learning about the conditions put forward by King Qi, because both Ryukyu and Airline belonged to the Dutch Trading Company, and both Claire and Rhodes were from Ryukyu and Airline, important stakeholders. Even the soldiers of this fleet depended on Ryukyu and this route for their livelihood. He remembered that in Holland, it was called stock go to war. Go to war. Following Claire, the soldiers on the battleship began to roar, shouting with flintlock guns, "Throw these natives into the sea to feed the sharks. Let's see how good we are." The frenzy began to spread on the ship, and Claire shouted with the soldiers. He shouted, "Soldiers, these natives want to take our wealth from us. Tell me, what will you do?" "Kill them all. Kill them all," the soldiers roared. Claire raised her hand and shouted, "Then let's use gunfire to tell this group of natives how they should talk to us. Enemies. When the soldiers were in a frenzy, the Dutch soldier on the watchtower suddenly pointed to the northern sea and shouted, which interrupted Claire's passionate speech. Claire looked up at the soldier on the top of the mast and immediately walked to the bow with the binoculars. Rhodes also took out the binoculars and looked at the sea to the north. In Claire's binoculars, 15 battleships were lined up and heading towards them. The first battleship was huge with 3 decks, followed by second-class battleships, third-class battleships, and some smaller battleships. God, who can tell me what the hell is going on? Claire fell into an ice cave. Chapter 434 Intimidation. On the vast sea, 15 warships stretched for more than a mile end to end, murderous. For a moment, the enthusiasm of the Dutch seemed to be frozen by the cold wind from the north. Obviously, the King Qi they faced was not a simple native dam. "Rhodes, you should tell me that there is a powerful fleet." Claire said madly. "Fanaticism does not mean stupidity. Their warships are all 3-level sailing warships, but they have lost in firepower, making them even more uncertain about the training of this sudden fleet. Road opened his mouth. He finally understood why this King Qi made such a rude request. The fleet in front of him had already explained everything. The King of Chu deceived us, and the King of Chu must have done it on purpose. Road shouted angrily, he hid everything from us just to let us fall into this trap. At this time, Sakai also saw the fleet on the sea through the telescope. The battleship of this fleet was not much different from the European battleship, but the flag with the words of the Great Yu Kingdom was hung on the battleship. The soldiers on the battleship were also dressed in the style of the Great Yu Kingdom. Seeing this scene, he was completely stunned. If this was the fleet of the Great Yu Kingdom, it would be a disaster for them. Earl, it's time for you to give an order. Sakai reminded, the more time you delay, the less chance you will have. Is it war? Or retreat? Claire recovered from the shock, looking left and right as if thinking about a very difficult decision. The news brought by Rhodes is very clear. What King Qi of the Great Yu Kingdom wants is Ryukyu and trade routes. If they cannot reach an agreement, war will be inevitable, whether it is now or in the future. Looking at the army of the Great Yu Kingdom that was getting closer, Claire said, we can't fight this fleet here, and the supplies are running out. Now we should return to Ryukyu and destroy this fleet in the waters outside Ryukyu. Rhodes nodded when he heard the words. This was undoubtedly a correct decision. After the order was issued, a bell rang on the ship soon, and the Dutch fleet slowly set sail towards the Ryukyu direction. In the bell at this time, on the King Qi, Yu Yun was observing the Dutch fleet with a telescope. When he saw the Dutch fleet fleeing south, he frowned. Because of the hasty battle, their ships also had little supplies. If the Dutch fleet refused to fight and continued to flee south, it would be very unfavorable for them. From the state to Ryukyu is a very long process. He looked towards the coast, where the army of the Great Yu Kingdom had already appeared. At this time, he saw the King's Hao army waving the military flag and uttering the slogan, "Don't pursue." Putting down the telescope, he ordered the crew, stop the pursuit. This order was given by Xiaoming. The Dutch chose to retreat. It was enough to show that they did not have the confidence to defeat him. He felt that the Dutch should be given a time to think about whether to accept his conditions. If the Dutchman still has a hard-boiled duck bill, he can only take the island by force to drive the Dutchman out of this sea area. At the same time, one of the reasons why he told Yu Yun to stop chasing was the problem of supply. He knew that there was not much food on the battleship at this time for the soldiers to eat, and it would be difficult to provide supplies without communication along the way. Therefore, he needs to establish a supply point along the coast, and at the same time make the King's Hao army fully prepared to launch an attack on Ryukyu. After all, in the era of sailing warships, if the enemy is unwilling to fight, he will be caught in a chase among the sailing warships. The first-class sailing warships and the second-class sailing warships are not as flexible as the third-class sailing warships, and they do not have an advantage in the pursuit battle, but directly attack the Ryukyu island. At that time, the Dutch fleet will have to accept the war. When is your highness going to attack Ryukyu? Niu Ben said at this time, and at the same time he was relieved. At least during the Battle of Jizhao, King Qi understood the importance of logistics, and he did not let the fleet pursue it rashly. Xiaoming said lightly, "Don't worry, Ryukyu Island is just a boiled duck that can't fly. Now we still need to wait for the Tiger guns and field guns in the military workshop, lest we suffer when the two armies fight." Niu Ben also saw the field artillery mounted by the Dutch on wheels. This artillery is short and thin, and has a small caliber, but it has to be said that it is very light on the battlefield. This kind of artillery has a longer range than a flintlock gun, and its power is greater than that of a flintlock gun. It is indeed a good weapon. It's time for Chen Qi to produce a batch of artillery like this. Niu Ben looked serious. No general likes to joke about soldiers' lives. Xiaoming originally thought that the Dutch would fight his fleet for a short period of time and then retreat, but he did not expect them to retreat so decisively, which more reflected the Dutch's guilty conscience, because the Dutch had no idea how many ships he had, and they knew very well that no reinforcements would arrive now. These Dutch people are afraid that they will be in a state of panic, worrying day and night that he will attack Ryukyu. Looking at the gradually disappearing Dutch battleship, Xiaoming and his party returned to Dengzhou City, and the war could begin when everything was ready. After returning this time, he would communicate with the King of Wei and the King of Chu, and let them take care of themselves on the coast. Leave a supply point now. Both the King of Wei and the King of Chu have the handle in his hands, and the two of them must not dare to make any small moves. Yu Yun led the fleet back to the military port quickly, and then he arrived at Dengzhou Chengfuyat with a group of admirals. "His Royal Highness, these Dutch people are running fast," Yu Yun said with a smile. "In the beginning, Our battleship was chased so badly by them, it's a pity that we didn't give them a hard lesson. There will be times when you will take revenge. Xiao Ming said to Yu Yun, but this time you may not be the opponents of the Dutch. The naval battle is not just won by your size. Familiar, from now on, you will stay in Dengzhou for 3 months of sea training, and when you are familiar with operating warships, we will talk about naval battles, and now let's clean up the nearby pirates. After Xiao Ming said this, a layer of cold sweat broke out on Yu Yun's back. Xiao Ming said a good point. If it really does fight this time, the outcome is unknown. Although his soldiers know how to control warships, they are unfamiliar with new ships, especially large ships of the first and second class are difficult to operate. Looking ashamed, Yu Yun said, yes, Your Highness. The last general will definitely train his soldiers hard and form an army as soon as possible. Nodding his head, Xiao Ming said to Yang Chengai at this time, Yang Inspector, now is a big opportunity for you Dengzhou. When you win Ryukyu, your Dengzhou will become a commercial port on the sea, which is very beneficial to the development of Dengzhou. Chapter 435 Salt Transport Division. The Dutch were scared away by the fleet, and the atmosphere in this palace was a little warm. Yang Chengai was the most excited. Xiao Ming said that he was even more happy, and said, Your Highness, is it true, nowadays, the ports of the Great Yu Kingdom are basically in the south, and everyone knows the important role of ports in a place. If Dengzhou can become a prosperous port, then Dengzhou will soon become a wealthy city in the future. As the governor of Dengzhou, he naturally likes to hear about it. Of course it's true, but this will only happen when General Niu Ben and Yu Yun take down Ryukyu. Xiao Ming said with a smile. Hearing this, Yang Chengai stood up and said to Niu Ben and Yu Yun, 2 generals, the future of Dengzhou can depend on 2 generals. Yang Inspector doesn't have to salute, this is what we should do. Niu Ben laughed. The completion of this battleship means that Xiao Ming can control the sea area near Dengzhou, which is another large area of maritime territory for Xiao Ming. He said, from now on, the place where our battleship passes is our country of Great Yu. Hi, Governor Yang, you can't just see the port, in fact, Dengzhou has a great wealth in front of you. Oh, please express Your Highness. Yang Chengai was puzzled. Ocean fishing. Xiao Ming said softly. Yang Chengai was overjoyed when he heard the words. He slapped his thigh and said, Oh, Your Highness, you are right. We have been bullied by Japanese pirates at sea all these years, and the lower officials have forgotten about fishing. Now our fishing boats can finally out to sea to fish. It's not just fishermen fishing. This king will allocate 30 merchant ships. After these merchant ships are converted, they will become fishing ships. When you land in the state, you must establish a special fishing team to engage in marine fishing to provide meat for the inland states and counties. Xiao Ming said, seeing the Dutch this time is not only shocked by the equipment of the Dutch, but also envious of the strong body of the Dutch. In Daewoo, in addition to the big belly and the waist, many people are malnourished. In the eyes of Europeans, this is no different from refugees, and is even regarded by Europe as a symbol of poverty. Xiao Ming also noticed this problem during the war with the barbarians. In the early days, the physical quality of his soldiers was not as good as that of the barbarians, which would suffer in the war itself. When he came back, he could only allow the army to eat meat for a month, and this was already the limit of King Zhao's meat supply. Without meat to eat, soldiers would not be able to enhance their physique to the level of barbarians or even Europeans during long-term training, which he did not want to see in modern times. The food of soldiers is also an important standard for the modernization of the army. The training of soldiers requires a lot of physical strength. If they cannot guarantee their diet, the training will be greatly reduced. The fish caught by the 30 fishing boats may not be enough for his army, but he can at least boil it into soup and let the soldiers drink the broth every now and then. Xiaoguan, remember. Yang Chengai suddenly felt a burden on his body. Heavier in the past, Dengzhou was only a marginal city, but now it has suddenly become a crucial city, not only to establish coastal defenses, but also to serve as a trading port and fishing industry base. Xiao Ming nodded. He has explained everything he should have explained. The Chinese New Year is coming soon, and after the Chinese New Year, his steps will be heading towards the ocean. After staying in Dengzhou for a few more days, Xiao Ming inspected the development of the states and counties in Dengzhou, and at the same time checked the implementation of various decrees. Now he is most concerned about the implementation of decrees in various states. Even in modern times, there are many countermeasures under the policy above. In this era of information blockade, it is more likely that decrees will fail. Therefore, when appointing Yang Chengai, he must know whether Yang Chengai has responded to the various decrees issued by King Zhao. His inspection was a bit sudden, which made Yang Chengai little at a loss, but after the inspection, Xiao Ming was quite satisfied with the results. Now in Dengzhou, there is no situation where the wealthy clan oppresses the neighbors. The former wealthy clans have all been divided into businessmen, and they no longer have armies. The distribution of land in Dengzhou is also very reasonable, and there is no dissatisfaction among the people. In fact, because the land in Dengzhou is sparsely populated, the people in Dengzhou have more land than Qingzhou. This is the distinction between wide and narrow townships. In ancient times, wide townships have more land and narrow townships have less land. In addition, he went to check the grain storage in Dengzhou, which was a top priority in ancient times, because the amount of grain meant how long the war could last. After getting a satisfactory answer, Xiao Ming finally went to the salt transport division in Dengzhou. Salt will be a big problem after ocean fishing begins, as there is no freezing technology at this time, and only salt and spices can be used to preserve food, which is one of the reasons why ancient spices are so important. The Europeans occupied Malaysia and other places that sold the most spices. Now Xiao Ming doesn't have enough spices, so he can only take the method of salting the sea fish to keep the sea fish alive. Although the sea fish is salty, the salt content of the sea fish is not enough to make the sea fish meet the standard of salting as he thought. So, he needed the salt transport division to remove more salt, and at the same time, he was going to sell the salt to other places in Daewoo, but only if his salt was cheaper than other places. This calls for more efficient salt production method. Your Highness, this is how we make salt in Dengzhou. The salt transport envoy of Dengzhou Salt Transport Department was named Yao Wenitun. After learning that Xiao Ming had gone to the salt farm, Yao Wenitun rushed over immediately. The place where Xiao Ming is now is a flat beach. There are more than 100 thatched huts on the beach. At this time, smoke is constantly coming out of the thatched huts. Some people are carrying the seawater into the thatched hut. Then they pour the water into the gauze and filter it several times, then pour it into the pot, and start heating and boiling to make salt. This is your method of making salt? Xiao Ming frowned. This is the method of boiling seawater. Yao Wenitun nodded and said, Your Highness, yes, the Salt Transportation Department has used this method to make salt since ancient times. Now the salt produced by our Salt Transportation Department is enough for the people of the 6 states. It's not enough now. Xiao Ming said, This method of making salt is too slow. Now you must replace it with a quick and effective method of making salt. Other ways? Yao Wenitun looked confused. Xiao Ming nodded and said, You have to remember what this king said now, and use this method to make salt in the future. After all, Xiao Ming told Yao Wenitun about the modern salt drying method. This method is very simple. This area is very large. You can excavate salt fields on this land. When the sea tide is high, the sea water will cover the salt fields and let the sun dry the salt fields. Chapter 436 Salt Fields. The wind was blowing, and the waves beat against the white sandy beach, making the sound of waves crashing on the shore. The salt field should be divided into 2 parts. One is the evaporation pond, and the other is the crystallization pond. Generally speaking, the salt drying needs to go through the construction of the beach, the whole beach, the tidal wave, the brine production, the brine measurement, the crystallization and the salt return. 7 sets of procedures. Xiao Ming explained to Yao Wenitun the method of drying salt in seawater. At this time, the image of the salt drying method in the technology library kept appearing in Yao Wenitun's mind, as if every word of Xiao Ming had let him experience it for himself, and he gradually understood what is an evaporation pond, what is a crystallization pond, what is a saturated solution, and how to continue extracting after dissolving the coarse salt. After a detailed narration, Xiao Ming said to Yao Wenitun, Do you understand now? Yao Wenitun nodded. Go back to Your Highness, the lower official understands. This salt drying method is to first build a tidal flat, then level the beach, and when the sea tide is high, introduce seawater into the salt field to make brine, and then use lotus seeds to measure the brine's concentration. The degree of saturation, generally speaking, the saturation of brine is 100%. There are 2 lotus seeds, one is 50% in size, and the other is 100% in size. If the lotus seeds are raised in brine, they will be 20% to 30% brine, and the level will be 20%. 50% of the lotus seeds floating on the brine surface are 50% brine. 10% of lotus seeds floating obliquely in brine are 70% to 80% brine, and 10% of lotus seeds floating flat on the brine surface. When the brine reaches 100%, the mud on the ground of the crystallization pond should be cleaned up, smeared and compacted, and the brine will be put in. The flowers will crystallize on the same day, and the salt will be returned to the pile after a few days. After a pause, Yao Winitun continued, at this time, the obtained salt is still coarse salt. The table salt that can be used needs to continue to be dissolved. After filtering with charcoal, it crystallizes into fine salt. Nodding with satisfaction, Xiao Ming said, yes, this is the way. The construction camp will arrive in the next few days, and they will help you build the salt field. Governor Yang, you have to cooperate with the Salt Transport Department to expand the number of salt workers. Let's expand the number of people to 2,000. If salt production is hard work, pay more salaries to the salt workers. In addition, salt production is a major matter of the country. You, the Salt Transportation Department, must not neglect your duties and guard yourself. Otherwise, don't blame the king for being ruthless. Finally, Xiao Ming's tone suddenly became very severe. Yao Winitun and Yang Chengai immediately bowed and said, I don't dare to be an official. This is the best. Xiao Ming said lightly, the destruction of an empire often starts from the inside. In ancient times, peasant uprisings often failed because the people inside were eager for pleasure. In the past 2 years, the life of the fief has been better. What he is most worried about is the rise of hedonism and the corruption of officials. After talking about the salt drying method, Xiao Ming, Niu Ben and others rode their horses and patrolled along the coastline. The salt field of Yan'an Division already belongs to the border of Dengzhou, and further west is Leizhou. In addition to having one salt field here, this time he also asked Yan'an Division to go to Leizhou Bay to build 3 more salt fields. In modern times, the salt fields in Leizhou Bay are famous all over the country. In ancient times, Qi was always the most salt-producing area. Even the salt in this area was once the source of tribute salt. The predecessor Xiao Ming did not pay attention to it. Growing up, after all, this is a stable source of income, and when the industry grows up, he plans to sell salt to every corner of Deu country. Walking along the sea to Dengzhou, Xiao Ming vaguely saw a small island on the sea. This small island is the modern Long Island County. Dengzhou of the Great Yu country covers a wide range, and the place where Dengzhou City was established is today's Penglai, and Chengdao County is directly facing Penglai. In addition to Penglai, Dengzhou also includes modern Yantai, Weihai, Qingsha, Haiyang, Russian, and other large areas. The location of the military port he set up was the famous Ming Dynasty Penglai military port. It was from here that the Ming Dynasty Navy set out to fight the Japanese pirates at sea during the Wanli period. At the same time, it was also the place where Qi Jiguang trained his troops. States are required to be ports of commerce. Therefore, when Jiang Zhenggang chose to be here, Xiao Ming did not make a decision with his head, but had his own basis. Moreover, Dengzhou is in a superior position, opposite Tibisha City, which belongs to Korea, which is the modern-day Lian. The straight sea distance from Dengzhou is only 200 miles away, and his navy only takes a day to arrive. Now the guerrilla and the barbarians are fighting against each other, and they are cooperating with the Japanese country and dispatching a large number of soldiers disguised as Japanese pirates to attack the coast. After several days of inspections, Xiao Ming has a detailed understanding of Dengzhou. In the future, Dengzhou will become a prosperous seaport city, which makes him have to pay attention to it. Even after the steam locomotive is developed, he will consider the first time from Qingzhou. Build a railway line to Dengzhou, so that a steady stream of materials can be transferred out by sea. After returning to Dengzhou and resting for 2 days, Xiao Ming was ready to return to Qingzhou. Now that the navy is emerging, and the north has temporarily stabilized, he can finally stop worrying all day long, and the rest of the work only needs to be done step by step, and he can also be a teacher of Bowen College with peace of mind, showing the knowledge in his science and technology library. For the students of the college, no way. Seriously speaking, what he is doing now is only the politics of the First Army. All industries are for the military service, and the real private industry has not developed much, and science other than military technology has also not been expanded. Such development is abnormal. Compared with today's European civilization, his fief is still an uncivilized area. However, it is very difficult to change the way of thinking of a nation. Governing a big country is like cooking a small fish. It can only be done tepidly and not impatiently. Yang Chengai, what this king should have said these days: you have a heavy responsibility as a prefect. Don't let this king down. Xiao Ming instructed Yang Chengai before leaving. Yang Chengai used to think that he belonged to a small frontier official, but now he has become a crucial official, and he is rather flattered. He said, Your Highness, rest assured, Yang Chengai must go. Xiao Ming nodded and looked at Yi Kengayan. The defense of Dengzhou can be left to you. You must not lose anything. especially the coastal defense of the military port. Yes, Your Highness. Yu Qingyan bowed and replied. After instructing the two of them, Xiao Ming and Niu Ben led the army back. This time, he had to talk to the king of Chu and the king of Wei about the supply point along the coast. 3 days later, the two returned to King Zhao. This time, it took another half a month, and the weather became colder and colder. Arriving in King Zhao, Xiao Ming and Niu Ben separated outside the city, and he went straight back to the palace. He never thought that when he just returned to the bedroom, a very fragrant scene suddenly appeared in front of him. Chapter 437 Fei Yuan number 039, S Handicrafts. What? With several exclamations, the singers in the bedroom all hugged their clothes to block their bodies. Among the singers, Fei Yuan was holding a bra and smiling, and the voices of the singers made her look out the door. Seeing Xiao Ming at this time, she suddenly stretched out her hand to block the intrusion of Xiao Ming's line of sight in front of the singers, and said angrily, "Your Highness, why don't you let Xiao Ahun tell your concubine when you come back?" A lot of cheap. Xiao Ming turned sideways and did not look at the singers. Although men are superior to women in this era, he can completely ignore Fei Yuan's feelings, but he is from modern times. For him, this is respect for his wife, especially Fei Yuan is still princess. Those who don't know are not guilty. This king doesn't know that the princess is doing this. Xiao Ming smiled. Fei Yuan rolled her eyes at Xiao Ming. She asked the singer to put on her clothes and go home, and then she said to Xiao Ming, "His Royal Highness has been in Dengzhou for half a month. Make something and see how. What is the effect?" Xiao Ming asked with a smile. Fei Yuan was serious, with the attitude of a scholar. The singers say that it is indeed more comfortable than wrapping the chest, especially the underwear can cover the shame. Xiao Ming nodded, and at the same time he was a little relieved. Since he came to the Great Yu Kingdom, he had had enough of days without underwear. In Dao country, there is no concept of underwear, so generally speaking, they will wear open crotch pants because they are worried about going out. Both men and women are the same. Some women in the smoke and dust even don't wear pants because they are bold, and they have bare buttocks under their skirts. Not only in the Great Yu Kingdom, but also in Europe. In this era in 1717, the Russian Tsar Peter the Great visited Paris. When he rode through the cheering streets, a woman accidentally fell in front of his horse, and suddenly the spring was full of joy. This beautiful woman was very embarrassed, but the Tsar only wrote in his memoirs with a playful mood, "The gates of heaven opened in front of me." This fall is a clear proof. Let us know that in the 18th century, in Paris, the most fashionable city in the world, women don't wear underwear. This was the case in China before the Han Dynasty. Later, there was a saying of poor trousers. These poor trousers are open crotch trousers. The Japanese made kimonos with tang suits. Similarly, women wear kimonos and do not wear underwear. After all, regardless of whether they are Chinese or foreign, women in ancient times wore large robes, and once they were wrapped, they could not see anything, and it didn't matter whether they wore them or not. Yes, the rest is to sell these things. Xiao Ming pondered. People from the Qin dynasty and Yuguo are used to this kind of living habit, but he can't get used to it. When he patrols and trains in King Zhao, he can often see Lu Fei raising his military uniform and peeing with his bare buttocks exposed, which is too dirty, and the popularity of underwear must have its own reasons. For a businessman, it doesn't matter whether there is a demand or not, but to create a demand. This is the way of business. This is the same as diamonds. Are diamonds really valuable? In fact, diamonds are very rich in the world. But the diamond merchants are only creating the illusion of scarcity due to the backlog of diamonds. The diamond itself does not have much meaning, but after being given the concept of love, diamonds have become a must-have for couples. This means that there is no demand to create demand, not to mention that the underwear is designed to facilitate movement. The picture of a group of soldiers falling to the ground and exposing their butts is too sour. Sell it? Fei Yu picked up the underwear and said with a blushing face, "Your Highness, can this be sold? It's too embarrassing. How can I sell it?" Xiao Ming put his arms around Fei Yu's slender waist and said, "Madam, didn't these singers say it? It's very comfortable after wearing them. That's enough, and the books don't say that underwear has many benefits." Fei Yu recalled that it was because of the various introductions in the books that Luo imitated it, and she has also tested it, and it can indeed better protect women's bodies. Yu is just worried that His Highness will be ridiculed by others for selling these things. Fei Yu was worried about Xiao Ming. After all, as a princess, she had to think about Xiao Ming everywhere. Xiao Ming had expected this for a long time, and he said, "The princess has been filtered. The king can't participate." Can't the princess participate? For example, The princess can open a women's clothing store, and male customers are not allowed to enter, so this solves this problem. Now any commodity is what Xiao Ming needs, because the birth of a commodity not only means more profits, but also means more jobs, and more jobs are enough to keep the textile industry moving forward. Fei Yu'er pondered for a while, and felt that Xiao Ming's words were very reasonable. She said, "Your Highness said very much?" In this way, the concubine can help His Highness to earn more money. When he spoke, Fei Yu'er's eyes flashed with excitement. Everyone in Qingzhou is busy now, and she doesn't want to live in the palace all day doing nothing. She feels that the atmosphere of Qingzhou is quite active these days, far from being a backwater like Chang'an. Having said this, Fei Yu'er asked softly, "Is Your Highness going to travel far from Dengzhou this time?" Startled for a moment, Xiao Ming looked at Fei Yu'er carefully, and it seemed that Xiao Ming saw through Xiao Ming's thoughts, and Fei Yu'er lowered her head, smiling softly. Xiao Ming took Fei Yu'er's little hand. He understood Fei Yu'er's thoughts when she came to Qingzhou alone from Chang'an. She naturally felt insecure in her heart. She didn't worry about anything when he was there, but this little girl would naturally be frightened when he left. After all, in Xiao Ming's view, Fei Yu'er is a woman who is a little girl. If you don't go, you will be in Qingzhou for the new year. Xiao Ming said in a trance. This is already his 3rd year in Qingzhou, and now his 5th is flourishing, and he now has his own family. As an orphan in his previous life, he is very satisfied now, and now he has to fight for the future of himself and this family. Seemingly feeling Xiao Ming's concern, Fei Yu'er's eyes showed a trace of serenity. In her opinion, this man was different from any other man in the Great Yu Kingdom. Xiao Ming's sudden return quickly alarmed the palace, and when the two were getting married, a loud voice suddenly rang out, "Your Highness, good news." Jin Dafu? Xiao Ming wondered. Fei Yu'er said at this time. Steward Jin came back 2 days ago. He said that he found a copper mine. Copper mine? Xiao Ming was overjoyed. The copper mine in his fief was very barren and had never been found. It was for this reason that he had to use a cast iron gun in addition to casting bronze guns. Copper has a wide range of functions. Because of a copper's corrosion resistance, in the era of sailing warships, in order to prolong the life of warships, the method of copper-clad bottoms was even used to build ocean-going warships. Chapter 438 Upgraded Tiger Cannon. P.S. 4 more tonight, and 1 more. The sudden sound made Xiao Ming and Fei Yu'er separate, and Fei Yu'er instinctively walked to the inner room of the bedroom. After a cough, Xiao Ming left the dormitory and was meeting Jin Dafu. "Your Highness, the copper mine has been found," Jin Dafu said excitedly, and then Jin Dafu took out a handful of copper or copper mine. Xiao Ming was excited at this time, not to mention that copper is still the currency in circulation in the Great Yu Kingdom, but only to say that the wide application of copper in industry is also an extremely important resource for Qingzhou. "His Royal Highness, this copper mine is really hard to find. After more than 2 years, the old slave has finally found it. Now the old slave has made arrangements for mining, and we can also mint coins in Qingzhou in the future." Jin Dafu said. "Mint coins?" Xiao Ming shook his head. Jin Dafu said, "Yes, Your Highness, as long as the current vassal kings can mine copper mines, they use the mined copper to cast copper coins. Don't Your Highness want to cast copper coins? Money is to be cast, but it cannot be cast randomly." Xiao Ming said. Everyone in Dao country doesn't understand what inflation is, so it is inevitable to make money indiscriminately. It is precisely because of this that the people do not trust copper coins, because sometimes 1 copper plate can buy 1 steamed bun, and sometimes 3 copper plates can't buy 1 steamed bun. This is all because of the confusion of copper coins in the market. So for Xiao Ming, he is not prepared to make copper coins indiscriminately like other vassal kings, because it is irresponsible to the people, and in order to avoid the inflow of foreign low-quality copper coins, he is even more prepared to issue his own currency. And the reason why he is so happy this time is not because copper coins can be minted, but because Qingzhou has another strategic resource now. Qingzhou is going to launch an attack on Ryukyu during the Chinese New Year. Now that there is a copper mine, he can let Chen Qi use the copper mine to forge some 6-pound bronze field guns. After all, field guns do not need to be mass-produced like defensive guns and naval guns. At this time, the use of bronze materials can improve the quality of field guns. During the Napoleonic period, field guns were mostly made of bronze. So, after a pause, he said to Jin Dafu, "First mine a batch and transport it to Qingzhou. This king is going to hand it over to the equipment division to make bronze field guns." "Yes, Your Highness." Jin Dafu was stunned for a moment, and he finally understood what Xiao Ming meant. This copper mine is not far away, just 180 miles northwest of Qingzhou. The first batch of copper mines will take place in 5 days. Stone will get there. Xiao Ming nodded when he heard the words, and said to Jin Dafu, in addition to the copper mine, during this time I sent people to Leizhou to look for gold mines and Dengzhou to look for silver mines. This is what this king needs now. Jin Dafu understood, smiled and said, Your Highness, you can rest easy. After telling Xiao Ming the good news of the discovery of the copper mine, Jin Dafu turned around and left. At this time, Xiao Ming let out a sigh of relief. Apart from casting field guns, copper mines have many uses, the most important of which is to manufacture copper wires. Therefore, the current copper mine is equivalent to a reserve for future power applications. After sending Jin Dafu away, Xiao Ming turned around and went back to the bedroom. Fei Yu'er was waiting for him in the inner room. The two were separated for half a month. The next day, when the sun was up, he slowly got up, saying that he would be busy with his subordinates when he was a leader, and people who would not be a leader would be busy with himself. Now he can finally appreciate the time when his subordinates are busy and he's relaxed. After all, Pang Yukan handles government affairs, and Niu Ben is in charge of the army. These two generals belong to the desperate sub-bureau, and they work like they are desperate, so both the prefectures and the army are well managed by the two, lazily grooming and eating. The servant told him that Fei Yu'er went to the textile mill with Luo in the morning. He understood that Fei Yu'er was busy with the underwear she designed. Shaking his head with a wry smile, Xiao Ming went to the military workshop after eating. He was going to see how the Tiger Zun cannon was, and at the same time talk about the field cannon. His Royal Highness, you just happen to be here. This is the Tiger cannon we designed today. As soon as he arrived at the military workshop, Chen Qi carried out more brand new Tiger cannon. Xiao Ming immediately gave a thumbs up when he saw this Tiger cannon. Chen Qi had upgraded the Tiger cannon. The current Tiger cannon has been separated from the original Tiger cannon of the Ming dynasty, but followed the direction of the mortar developed. Now the base of this mortar is a square metal plate, and the cylindrical barrel is fixed on the metal plates on both sides through the trunnion, so that the mortar can be freely adjusted up and down to fire. The mortar as a whole can be moved by only 2 soldiers holding the handles on the metal plate on the ground, which is very convenient and fast. Yes, there is progress, Xiao Ming said, looking at the brand new mortar. Chen Qi smiled and said, His Royal Highness, the lower official remodeled the mortar according to the textbook, and also remodeled the cannonball. With that said, Chen Qi handed the blooming bullet with a hollow cork to Xiao Ming, and a lead was extended from the middle of the cork. He rotated the cork, and the cork turned outward or inward according to different directions. He asked, Can you know the specific explosion time of this shell now? Although the accuracy rate is not high, it is still much stronger than the previous powder cans. At least it avoids the situation that the ammunition will explode in the barrel, and we can probably control the time when the shell explodes through the corkscrew. Really? Xiao Ming had some expectations. If he could achieve effective results, it would be much easier to attack the Dutch this time. Chen Qi nodded and said to the craftsman beside him, Let your Highness see it. By experimenting, the 2 craftsmen received the order and immediately carried the mortar to Xiao Ming, then poured the gunpowder into the bottom of the mortar, and then stuffed the ammunition with the flat-bottomed wooden support into the mortar. His Royal Highness, just hit the target 300 meters away. Chen Qi has already mastered the calculation method of the parabola, so now he can calculate the landing point of the shell according to the different elevation angles of the mortar. Although the error of this landing point is larger, it is still developing in a positive direction. Let it go. With an order, the craftsman fired. After a muffled sound, the ammunition flew out in a parabola and fell at a position of about 300 meters. With a boom, the shell suddenly exploded at a position 3 meters from the ground. Chen Qi said a little embarrassedly at this time, Your Highness, this is the problem now. The time for the explosion of the bomb is not fixed. Although Chen Qi said it lightly, Xiao Ming was so surprised that he could not close his mouth. It was amazing to make the blooming bullet within this error range. He said, It's already very good. Now let's produce mortars and deliver them to the Qingzhou army. In addition, this king is talking to you about field guns. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 439 Field Artillery. Field Artillery. Chen Qi's expression became serious, and now Xiao Ming personally came to say that this must be that the Qingzhou army will soon be able to use this field artillery. This time, when he saw the Dutch towed field gun in Dengzhou, He knew that he was still behind Europe in terms of military technology, because the field gun used by the Dutch was basically not much different from the contemporary Napoleon field gun at this point in time. Weapons similar to Napoleon's field gun appeared, which is enough to prove that Europe in this time and space has surpassed the contemporary 50 or 67 years in terms of technology. There is basically no gap between this and his judgment. If so, he must calm down and catch up. After all, Europe is the overall progress of society, and his current progress is only in a few workshops in Qingzhou. Yes, field guns, and they are Napoleon field guns. I think you have seen them in textbooks. Napoleon guns are divided into two types, 12-pound guns and 6-pound guns, of which 12-pound guns are used to attack cities, and the 6-pounder was used during the battle between the two armies. Xiao Ming reminded. Chen Qi nodded. Xiaoguan remembers, the 6-pounder field gun is 1.52 meters long, 93 millimeters in caliber, and weighs 389 kilograms. The 12-pounder field gun is 1.6 meters long and has a caliber 117 millimeters. The gun body weighs 556 kilograms, but Your Highness, this Napoleon field gun is all cast in bronze, and such a field gun can even withstand the power of double explosives. So do we also use bronze casting? Jin Dafu discovered a copper mine in the northwest of Qingzhou City, so now we have enough copper to make field guns, but the number of field guns is not much, but this king is willing. After all, field guns travel through mountains and rivers, and require high quality. Within 3 months after that, this king needs 36-pound field guns and 20 12-pound field guns. Chen Qi pondered. In this way, we need to recast the iron mold. And we also need to make a trailer. It's basically good. This king has brought you the structure diagram of the Napoleon cannon. It is not a problem to manufacture the Napoleon cannon with your current technology. Xiao Ming said. After taking Xiao Ming's structure diagram, Chen Qi looked at it repeatedly. This time the structure diagram was more detailed than the textbook. It's not that Xiao Ming is clumsy, he just adopted the method of modern textbooks and only teaches basic knowledge, but he did not paste the real field artillery structure diagram on the textbook. After all, if it is written in too much detail, it is equivalent to leaking secrets. This means that everyone in modern times knows that nuclear weapons release energy through fission, but not everyone can create an atomic bomb. Textbooks are textbooks after all, but they are not technical materials after all. It's all right now. Xiao Ming laughed. Sometimes it's not the lack of technology, but the lack of creativity. Now that Chen Qi has a comprehensive understanding of the structure of field guns, using the current iron mold casting technology is enough to produce Napoleon field guns in the manufacturing process. The main point is the structure of the trailer. Now that he provides the specific structure of the trailer, the problem does not exist. Chen Qi studied it for a while and praised, this trailer is really wonderful. Not only can the field gun be maneuvered under the traction of the horse, but also can bear the gun seat of the gun, and the downward bending structure can even press the ground to let the gun move. There will be no large displacement due to the launch, and this time it will be no problem. Chen Qi looked suddenly enlightened, and Xiao Ming felt relieved immediately. He said, now you can make iron molds first, and when the copper arrives, try to produce it. This field gun is not only used to deal with the Dutch, but also to deal with the barbarian. Yes, Your Highness. Chen Qi's expression was solemn. Now that the handover of the naval artillery is over, the experiment of the mortar is completed, and it can be put into production. He has a lot of time to study the field artillery. After explaining this matter, Xiao Ming felt relieved for a while. The news brought by Wang Zhuan said that the Dutch had built a bastion in Ryukyu. If there were no field artillery, his army would definitely cause a lot of casualties to attack the bastion. The problem is different. When Xiao Ming asked the military workshop to produce field guns, the Dutch fleet had already arrived in Ryukyu. The fleet docked at the wharf, and Claire and Rhodes headed for the city of Duranja, not far from the wharf, which was the city they built in Ryukyu. Along the way, Claire had a gloomy face, obviously thinking about a very important matter, and Rhodes' face was extremely ugly. After they retreated from Dengzhou, the enemy fleet did not chase after them, but the other side's powerful fleet was always lingering in their hearts, because they also lost their self-confidence on the sea they were most proud of. After walking 10 miles to the shore, a typical European bastion building appeared in front of them. After occupying Ryukyu 30 years ago, this bastion forced the local indigenous people to build it for them. The construction of the bastion took 5 years. At this time, a huge bastion 2 miles long and wide, the whole bastion was shaped like a 5-pointed star, with turrets set on each corner, and the edges and corners can shoot each other for protection. The count is back. With a horn from the city, the iron gate of the bastion slowly opened. The Dutch soldiers guarding the bastion saluted Claire. In the bastion, some black-haired and yellow-skinned local indigenous people are carrying rice. Since they occupied Ryukyu, they have asked the local indigenous people to grow rice and sugar cane, and these two are the goods they sell to Europe. Count Claire, you have to make up your mind now. What should we do now? Rhodes said. Claire's face was gloomy. What else can I do? Are you surrendering to this King Ki and accepting their conditions? Now the soldiers are very scared. We are too far from our hometown, and the enemy is too strong. This King Ki has not only a powerful fleet but also soldiers equipped with flintlock guns. At the head of the city, they also have artillery, our weapons. Maybe a bit more advanced than them, but we can't win with numbers, especially if the fleet can't protect us. I'll be stuck here. Coward, are you ready to run now? Claire said contemptuously. Rhodes defended, it's not that I am afraid, but we must find reinforcements now, otherwise we are not the opponents of this King of Ki, and now we should ask the British to help us. In any case, we are all Europeans. Really? In order to drive away one villain and find another villain? Claire became more and more dissatisfied. Rod, you must be frightened. You'd better go back and rest now. Rhodes knew that Claire was chasing people, and he said, Count, I hope you will think about it carefully. Chapter 440. Claire and number 039's decision. The afterglow of a setting sun reflected in the chief's office of Relanso City. After watching Rhodes leave, Claire walked to the window. It was already evening, and the dusk covered the red brick city construction and the fall, which was very beautiful. After he came to Ryukyu, he was attracted by the beautiful scenery here. He even thought about taking his wife to this beautiful place, but now everything is getting worse and worse. Frowning, it was difficult for Claire to understand why the King Ki was so obsessed with Ryukyu, because from what he knew, the officials of the Great Yu Kingdom did not seem to have much affection for Ryukyu. Even when dealing with the King of Chu at first, the King of Chu tacitly accepted the fact that they occupied Ryukyu, but now this King of Ki has changed everything. 15 Garen warships. Claire recalled the fleet that belonged to King Ki, and now he is most confused about why this King Ki has both a flintlock gun and a Galen ship. A standard European warship. He has been thinking about this question since returning from Dengzhou, but no one can give him the answer. The arquebus can be explained, but he still can't figure out the flintlock gun and the battleship, because with the industrial capability of Dayu Kingdom, even if he masters the flintlock gun technology, it is impossible to manufacture the flintlock gun and the battleship so easily, especially the cast iron guns on the city walls. This kind of cast iron guns has only become the mainstream of naval guns in Europe for more than 30 years, but even so, the firing rate of this kind of naval guns is higher than that of bronze guns. However, the cast iron guns purchased by the King of Chu from Qingzhou are of very good quality. According to the King of Chu, these guns had explosion accidents, but each explosion would not cause too much damage, and the accident rate was very low, which was enough to explain the excellent quality of this cast iron gun. Thinking of this, Claire became more and more uneasy. If this King Ki had such a strong industrial ability, then he had to consider this matter carefully. After all, fighting such a powerful vassal in the waters near the Great Yu Kingdom would be a disaster and even cause them to permanently withdraw from East Asian trade. So at the beginning, he did not consider Rhodes' suggestion. If the British were involved, it would only anger the King of Ki, and the British had coveted the East Asian route for a long time. After hesitating for a long time, Claire was going to take a more secure approach. He was going to let Rhodes go on an envoy again, but this time he wanted to send Rhodes to Qingzhou, the capital of King Ki's fief. If it is confirmed that the Qi King is really as powerful as he imagined, he will have to carefully consider the Qi King's suggestion, so that at least they can keep their trade in East Asia, which is better than losing everything. In his opinion, Rhodes has been in Ryukyu for too long, and he has no understanding of the current situation in Europe. Today's Netherlands has become increasingly weak and unable to compete with European powers for trade routes, so East Asian trade was vital to the Dutch. With a sigh, Claire looked towards the bay. At this time, his fleet was parked in the crescent-like wharf. Many Dutch merchant ships docked here. It was through here that they brought goods from East Asia back to the country as the sunset faded away. Claire finally made up her mind that the Great Yu Kingdom was completely different from the Americas and Africa they conquered. It was a civilization similar to them. Rather than staying in a primitive tribal state, such a national war machine would be terrifying in operation. King Zhao Xiaoming's days suddenly became more leisurely. In the past 2 days, He was either in the Wangfu and FIU's underwear design problems or went to Bowen College to supervise the students, learning now that the overall situation is temporarily stable. He wants to take advantage of this stable situation to cultivate more talents, and it is not enough to rely on Lin Wentao and Lu Tong alone. His aim is to make Bowen College technology bloom everywhere. His Royal Highness, the style of this underwear is basically determined now. The female workers in the textile mill are producing underwear, but how to promote this underwear now? In the bedroom, Fei Yuer propped her arms on the table. She was unfamiliar with this place and didn't know where to start. Xiaoming actually had an idea in his heart for a long time. There are not many powerful people and ladies in Kingzhou, so he can only find an authority figure from another place. So he said to Fei Yuer, "Actually, is there a person who wants to promote underwear?" Fei Yuer said eagerly, "Who is it?" "Princess Pingyang." Xiaoming said lightly. Princess Pingyang has always been known for her bold style, and things like this bra are expected to interest a princess. After all, Princess Pingyang is the fashion vein of the Great Yu Kingdom, and this underwear is not only used to cover shame, but also has a very important role in making women more attractive. Fei Yuer suddenly understood, but the excitement just raised her brows and disappeared. She said decadently, "It's just that Her Royal Highness has a high status, and now she's in Chang'an again. Is she willing to come?" "That's not necessarily true. Last time she came to this king's fief for the sake of glass. Now you send a letter in the name of Princess Qi, and maybe she will come over." Xiaoming rolled his eyes. "Then you will describe the changes in Kingzhou now. With my aunt's temperament, I can't say she will come." Fei Yuer bit her lip. She was timid, but thinking about being able to help Xiaoming, she nodded and said, "Chen concubine, I will send a letter to the princess." After all, Fei Yuer asked Xiaohun to take a pen and paper and start writing. Xiaoming sat on the side to supervise. When Fei Yuer started to write, a line of beautiful small characters appeared on the paper, very neat and beautiful. Looking at these calligraphy-like handwriting, Xiaoming felt ashamed compared to Fei Yuer's calligraphy. Her own handwriting is as shabby as an earthworm looking for a mother. After writing the letter, Fei Yuer gave it to Xiaohun and asked her to send it to Chang'an. Then she seemed to remember something and said, "Your Highness, this underwear is made, but the dyeing workshop in Kingzhou there are very few, and they can only dye a single color." The concubine thought that there are some dyeing skills in the books given by His Highness, and let the dyeing workshop learn it. Textile and dyeing are not separated. Although Xiaoming is free now, he has been thinking about improving the quality of Kingzhou clothes so that he can quickly occupy the market in this way. In addition to the textile process, what is needed is the dyeing workshop. Only the fabrics that can dye the color conflicts can sew exquisite clothes. This cloth dyeing workshop is also the industry that Xiaoming intends to improve, so he said, "The princess and this king really have a good understanding of each other." The textile workshop in Kingzhou is still left by the Sun family. Now it is time to improve the dyeing process. Seeing Xiaoming's playful words, Fei Yuer laughed softly. Chapter 441 Pingyang and number 039, S astonishment. P.S. There is one more update tonight. During this time, the snail has been slow to update due to the cold. I am very sorry. From tomorrow, the snail will start to make up for the chapters it owes in the bedroom. Xiaoming and Fei Yuer got together to discuss the dyeing process. It was already night, and only the lanterns in the palace were emitting dim candlelight. For Xiaoming, the small dyeing process was naturally not a problem, but it was naturally impossible for him to achieve the modern dyeing process. But at least he can make Kingzhou's cloth dyeing process higher than the current highest level in Dao Kingdom matter: red, comfrey, purple, hematoxylin, black, su fang, red, indigo, blue. Holding a pen, Xiaoming wrote down the same natural dyes at present. Chemical fuels are out of reach for him, and only natural fuels can be used today, and there are more than 100 natural fuels in his technology library. The colors of these more than 100 fuels can be adjusted. Then he wrote down the information that the basic 7 kinds of pigments will become other colors after mixing, so that the color of the clothes in Kingzhou dyeing workshop is no problem. His Royal Highness, so many? Looking at the dense handwriting on the paper, Fei Yuer was excited and a little surprised at the same time. This dyes only a few, the most are the types of Thai flowers. Xiaoming said since then, the method of hand dyeing cloth is nothing more than tie dyeing, which is to trap the cloth into various shapes and soak it in dyes to create different colors. In Xiaoming's technology library, a variety of tie-dye patterns and tying methods are synthesized. As long as these things are taught to the dyeing workshop, it is enough to make the dyeing workshop's craftsmanship reach the modern level. After drawing all known excellent materials, the next day, Xiao Ming and Fei Yu went to the dyeing workshop to teach the craftsmen the craftsmanship of tie-dyeing and the manufacturing methods of various natural dyes. Because the Sun's house was raided, the current dyeing workshop is under the name of the government, so Xiao Ming is not worried that the craftsmen will leak secrets. After all, there is special supervision since there are too many tie-dye patterns. The two have been busy for a while, and Fei Yu also took the opportunity to dye the underwear after her letter went to Chang'an. Princess Pingayang immediately replied with a letter, which was expedited to send it back 800 miles, meaning that she had already set off from Chang'an to King's Hao when she saw the letter. After hearing this news, Fei Yu was excited for a long time, thinking all day about how to sell her design to Princess Pingayang and others. After all, besides Princess Pingayang, many ladies from Chang'an came to King's Hao this time. 4 days after receiving the letter, a huge team entered King's Hao city, and this team was all protected by the golden armor, which was Princess Pingayang. And after 2 years, Princess Pingayang came to King's Hao again. The last time was very unpleasant because of the assassination. This time, Princess Pingayang was able to come with great determination. The motorcade stopped at the city gate. At this time, Princess Pingayang lifted the bead curtain and walked down. Xiao Ming and Fei Yu were waiting for her at the city gate. Why should the nephew and the princess come to the city gate to greet them? It's not the first time for my aunt to come to King's Hao at this time. Princess Pingayang was amiable, with a loving smile of an elder. Today is different from the past. 2 years ago, Xiao Ming was only a vassal king who was not taken seriously, and now Xiao Ming is already a pivotal figure in the Great Yu Kingdom, and at the same time is a popular person around Xiao Wangsu. And Princess Pingayang has always been tactful and sophisticated in her life. In the past, Xiao Wangsu attached great importance to King Wei, so she naturally had a close relationship with King Wei. Now that the wind has changed, she naturally wants to be close to Xiao Ming. Just thinking of the rift at the beginning, Princess Pingayang was deeply afraid that Xiao Ming would keep it in her heart, and she didn't know how to improve her relationship with Xiao Ming for a while. This time Fei Yu sent a letter inviting her to come to King's Hao as a guest, not to mention that the new products in King's Hao made her very interested, but she also had to come to improve her relationship with Xiao Ming. But when she came to King's Hao this time, she suddenly felt that she had come to the right place compared with 2 years ago. Today's King's Hao is very prosperous and lively, but there are no less businessmen on the official road than Chang'an. And what makes her more curious is the clean cement road along the way. Perhaps it was an illusion. After stepping on this smooth road, she suddenly felt that King's Hao was not a remote city, but a place more noble than Chang'an. Auntie's words are out. No matter if it's the first time I've come to my nephew, I still have to come to meet my auntie in person. Xiao Ming said with a smile. In the past 2 years, he has matured a lot, and he will not push a united force out of the door because of his initial unhappiness. After all, there are no permanent enemies or permanent friends in this circle, but only eternal interests. The obvious problem now is that working with him is now much more beneficial than working with King Wei. Xiao Ming's polite words made Princess Pingayang laugh immediately. She came over, held Xiao Ming in one hand, and Fei Yu in the other, walked into the city, and said, "Hey, among so many nephews, only you are the most caring. This time, no matter what new products your King's Hao launches, my aunt will do her best to promote it for you." Then many thanks to auntie. Xiao Ming smiled. Fei Yu said at the same time, "Thank you, your highness." Princess hearing that, Princess Pingayang squeezed Fei Yu's hand and said, "Why are you still called her royal highness? It should be called auntie." Fei Yu was stunned for a moment, then she felt a little embarrassed and called softly, "Auntie." Princess Pingayang nodded, and then asked about the underwear designed by Fei Yu. The two wanted to talk very happily. Originally, Xiao Ming walked side by side with the two of them, but gradually Princess Pingayang and Fei Yu became more and more excited as they talked, and finally he was left behind this time, with Princess Pingayang, all the wives of the powerful people in Chang'an City. There are 30 people, and these noble women wear elegant and luxurious dresses, and their long skirts hang down. Perhaps because of the issue of underwear, he always speculates maliciously whether these ladies are also bare bottoms under their skirts, shaking his head and throwing this evil thought out of his mind. Xiao Ming led the crowd to the Wei family restaurant. He was going to place all these people here. After all, there were too many people over 30, and his palace could not live there. When the group arrived at the Wei family's restaurant, the ladies who were talking and laughing immediately let out an exclamation. Princess Pingayang also looked at the Wei family restaurant in surprise at this time, and said to Xiao Ming, "Minger, is this window glass?" "Auntie, the doors and windows of the Wei family restaurant are now all glass." Xiao Ming said, since he ordered the establishment of a door and window workshop. The first batch of glass windows have been applied to the Wei family restaurant in a short moment. The doors and windows of the Wei family restaurant were all made of glass, and curtains were hung inside the windows. Now Weijia restaurant is basically a quaint modern restaurant prodigal son. Such expensive glass is actually used to decorate windows. Princess Pingyang felt a pain in the flesh. Chapter 442, Astonishing Everyone. And, this is not a prodigal. For my nephew, there is a lot of glass in Qingzhou now, and it can be used for other things. Xiao Ming smiled lightly. Once the glass production process matures, the production volume of glass will be greatly increased, and now the glass produced by the glass workshop has exceeded the number of glass sold. Xiao Ming only put his inventory on the market to avoid a sudden big price drop. After the market is saturated, he will lower the price and sell the glass to other classes of people, so that he can make the most profit. Very rich. Princess Pingyang was stunned for a moment when she heard the words, and then she sighed. She basically understood what Xiao Ming was doing now, which was similar to how she did business. The whole Wei family restaurant was covered with glass, and it suddenly looked very noble. Princess Pingyang changed the topic and said, Feng Deshu said that this Wei family restaurant is very comfortable, and even told the emperor that it is more comfortable than living in the palace, but I don't know the truth. Fake. This time my aunt came here to test the truth for your father. Auntie. Feng Shilin never tells lies. My nephew is just worried that you won't want to leave once you're here, Xiao Ming said. Princess Pingyang rolled her eyes and Xiao Ming said, you underestimate Aunt too much. Aunt has never seen any battles after all. He took the ladies into the Wei family restaurant because I knew in advance that Princess Pingyang was coming. The Wei family restaurant had vacated the 30 rooms on the top floor of the restaurant, waiting for this group to check in. Seeing Princess Pingyang entering the Wei family restaurant, Xiao Ming and Fei Yuer looked at each other and smiled. If it was before, Fei Yuer would not have believed the charm of this Wei family restaurant, but after living in it with Xiao Ming, they were finally convinced by the comfort of the Wei family restaurant. Really makes people feel a sense of loss. After half an hour, Minger, my aunt is going to stay in Qingzhou for a few more days this time. Besides, if there is any decent house in Qingzhou, you might as well recommend it to my aunt. My aunt is going to buy it. Princess Pingyang shines in both ways. It is better to meet each other than to be famous. This time, she finally understands why Feng Deshu is so full of praise. Overall, the rooms in this restaurant are clean and comfortable, which is not something you can enjoy in Chang'an. The novel things in the room made her feel greedy and unwilling to leave, and she could see the lively scene of the East City clearly through the transparent glass by opening the curtains. This wonderful feeling is fascinating. Auntie, are you planning to live permanently? Xiao Ming asked. Princess Pingyang nodded without hesitation. That's natural. Aunt doesn't want to stay in boring Chang'an all the time. Your Qingzhou is really interesting. Xiao Ming laughed when he heard the words. His goal was achieved. Although Fei Yuer's goal this time was to launch women's products, it was not bad for Xiao Ming to take the opportunity to let these ladies invest in real estate in Qingzhou. He said, Auntie, an ordinary house is too boring. Why don't my nephew build a house specially for my aunt? My nephew guarantees that this house is more comfortable than this Wei family restaurant, and it is warm in winter and cool in summer. What the ladies of Princess Pingyang pursue is enjoyment, she said seriously. What are you saying is true? Will the things in this house be the same as the Wei family restaurant? Absolutely the same. Xiao Ming affirmed, but Auntie, you have also seen that the things in this restaurant are very expensive. Then, what? Are you still afraid that your aunt won't have any money? HMPH, even if you build this house for your aunt, she won't be short of a tail of money for you. Princess Pingyang said. Xiao Ming just waited for Princess Pingyang's words. Now the development of Qingzhou needs money everywhere, and the construction of 12 Galen ships and more than 1,000 naval guns have almost emptied his money. After he returned from Dengzhou, Pang Yuqin showed him the accounts of the government office. When he was in Dengzhou, he vowed to change the equipment for the Dengzhou army, and he was dumbfounded. Not to mention the labor. Iron ore is not enough, saltpeter is not enough, and sulfur is even more scarce. This year's huge shipbuilding plan has almost dragged down Qingzhou's finances. Although he knew that he was practicing Songhan politics, the army now consumes almost 80% of the government's silver taels. After learning that he was going to replace the equipment for the Dengzhou army again, Pang Yuqin, who was working like an old scalper, immediately exploded, and he was about to slap his sleeves. It is for this reason that he has nothing to do with Fei Yuer these 2 days to study women's underwear, all for the purpose of increasing an income, including his proposal to build a houses to further accumulate wealth. For this, He did not hesitate to bring out the modern real estate economy, seeing Princess Pingyang so cheerful. Xiao Ming smiled and said to the ladies, "If you have any ideas, you can talk to this king, and this king will start construction at the same time, so that next spring, you can come to Qingzhou to enjoy the beautiful scenery while living in a comfortable house." As soon as Xiao Ming's words were spoken, many noble ladies were a little tempted, but they were not like Princess Pingyang, who could make a decision immediately, because they had to go back and discuss with their husbands. Princess Pingyang took the initiative to say, "You don't have to do this yourself, the vassal king, and my aunt will help you. How about sending you the list from Chang'an, then many thanks to auntie." Xiao Ming said with a smile. This time, Princess Pingyang and others were quite satisfied by staying at the Wei family restaurant, and then the food at the Wei family restaurant made Princess Pingyang and others almost lose their virtuous image on weekdays, like Cao Chewing Peony in particular. The French fries launched by Weijia restaurant made everyone addicted. Accompanying Princess Pingyang to dinner at the Wei family restaurant, Princess Pingyang's satisfied appearance made Xiao Ming know that this time, these ladies were really impressed. Everyone entered the city at night, and it was already evening. After dinner at this time, the lanterns in the Wei family restaurant were all lit up like the daytime. Looking at the night outside the door, Princess Pingyang suddenly said, "This Wei family restaurant is very comfortable, and the food is also extremely delicious, but it's just a little bit of fun. My aunt came all the way, how could my nephew forget this?" Xiao Ming said. At this moment, he clapped his hands, and immediately a troupe walked in from the door, and Aster led the troupe to the front. "Auntie, this is the play troupe in Qingzhou. Recently, my nephew asked them to arrange a play called The Story of the West Chamber, and now I can relieve my aunt's boredom." Xiao Ming said. When Princess Pingyang heard the words, she immediately became interested. Ming'er is really interested. Chapter 443 Guidance. There is a stage in the middle of the Wei family restaurant, which is used for performances on weekdays. This time it was Chen Jiabin who came to perform The Story of the West Chamber. Since Xiao Ming brought Chen Jiabin under his banner, he has asked Aster to arrange a lot of plays for Chen Jiabin. This play is not imitating the European stage play, but adopts the traditional Peking opera situation to perform because in Xiao Ming's view, Chinese culture is extensive and profound. Although it lags behind Europe in terms of technology in this era, there is no need to be culturally inferior. He is confident that promoting traditional Chinese culture will also have good results. However, while promoting traditional culture, he needs to get rid of the drawbacks of traditional culture and promote some new trends of thought. After all, drama is only the expression of ideas, not the difference between China and foreign countries. When the troupe stepped forward, Princess Pingyang and the other ladies immediately showed their excited expressions. In every era, the lives of the rich and the powerful are similar. They are sitting on huge wealth. Converting wealth into the enjoyment of life is one of their joys in life. Showing off wealth, buying luxury goods, and comparison are never in the circle of nobles. A topic that will reduce its popularity no matter Chinese or foreign, ancient or modern. It is precisely by grasping the consumer psychology of these wealthy people that Xiao Ming has developed a set of experience procedures, from staying in Weijia restaurant to enjoying wonderful dramas. After these noble ladies go back, what they have seen and heard in Qingzhou will become a topic they are keen on in the circle of elites, and those envy and jealous nobles will inevitably go to Qingzhou one after another to keep themselves from falling behind these noble ladies. "Auntie, you're welcome. This auntie in Chang'an is probably tired of watching dramas. My nephew thought that there are a few more exciting ones in Qingzhou, so he thought about letting auntie relieve the boredom," Xiao Ming said with a smile. Princess Pingyang became more and more happy. She patted Fei Yuer's little hand and said, "Yuer, you see that aunt is right. This will hurt my nephew. You will not have a hard life with my nephew now." Of what auntie said is that your highness is different, and Yuer is also very happy. Fei Yuer glanced at Xiao Ming and said softly to Princess Pingyang, not knowing whether it was polite or sincere. Princess Pingyang's eyes rolled around on Fei Yuer and Xiao Ming. When they came to Qingzhou this time, the couple treated her well, which made her happy, and her worries when she came to Qingzhou were gone. The three of them were talking at home, and the sound of the orchestra on the stage sounded on the stage. Chen Zier still sang, "Ask Xiaolei who died the frost and the forest drunk, the blue sky and yellow flowers and the west wind are tight." All was away from people's tears. Achievement is too late and it is too early. It makes people melancholy, unable to tie the horse. "Empty this willow silk is long." With a clear and agitated tone, everyone was immediately attracted by the performance on stage. The Story of the West Chamber is a traditional Peking opera repertoire, So it really didn't take much effort for Aster to rehearse the story of the West Chamber. Everything was ready-made, and Xiaoming chose this repertoire for a reason after all. For women, love is not a constant topic in any era. It is precisely because of the constraints of feudal ethics and ethics on human relations that women yearn for a lingering love story in their hearts. As the performance started, Princess Pingayang and the ladies were immediately immersed in the scene of the story. Even Fei Yu'er couldn't take his eyes off it, because she had never seen this track. Watching the crowd gradually become fascinated, Xiaoming nodded with satisfaction and quietly accompanied Princess Pingayang to the show. When Sun Fihui heard that Yingying was beautiful, he led his troops to surround the Pujiu temple and wanted to force Yingying as his wife. The princess looked worried, and when Zhang Shangxiu invited Duke, the old white horse general, to lead his troops to relieve the siege, but afterward Mrs. Queen never mentioned the marriage, and only asked the two to be brothers and sisters. Princess Pingayang gritted her teeth again. This play is very long. An hour later, when Zhang Sheng passed the exam and married Kui Yingying, the whole play finally came to an end. At this time, Princess Pingayang couldn't help but wipe away her tears. She said faintly, "May all lovers in the world be married in the end, but unfortunately, things often backfire in this world." Hey, Fei Yu'er's performance was different for Princess Pingayang. She smiled, and she was happy because of the happy ending. Xiaoming knew why Princess Pingayang was so sad. At first, Xiao Wangsun chose a concubine for her in order to win over the Zhao family, and Xiao Wangsun also knew about it. At that time the two brothers and sisters had a quarrel over this matter. In the end, Xiao Wangsun asked the general who Princess Pingayang liked to go north to resist the barbarians. After a war, the general was never heard from again. At this time, this drama touched Princess Pingayang's past, which moved her so deeply. It's a wonderful opera. Appreciate it. Princess Pingayang suddenly shouted loudly as soon as her voice fell. The two maids who served Princess Pingayang took out a handful of broken silver and threw it on the stage. Then the other ladies followed suit, and for a while, the stage seemed to be raining silver. Seeing this, Xiaoming laughed lightly and said, "Auntie, there are quite a few operas in this troupe, but it's too late tonight, so I guess I can only perform this song." Princess Pingayang's heart moved. The days in Chang'an were too boring and there was no fun. After coming to King Zhao, she suddenly felt a lot of expectations. He said to Xiaoming, "If this is the case, then it is even more appropriate to buy a house in King Zhao. Now, Minger, you can give Aunt some snacks for this matter." "Auntie, rest assured, nephew will definitely not disappoint Auntie, and there will be a lot of fun things in King Zhao next year, so that Auntie will not be bored," Xiaoming said in a stern manner. For more than 2 years, Xiaoming has not changed the entertainment projects of the Great Yu Kingdom, but has focused his energy on development. Now that King Zhao has reached an inflection point in its development, it is necessary for him to put some entertainment activities that attract rich people in to get it out. Princess Pingayang stood up and stretched at this moment. She said to Xiaoming, "It's not too early. You two should go back and rest early. We will meet the princess's daughter-in-law again tomorrow. In that case, my nephew will not bother." Xiaoming bowed and said. Watching Princess Pingayang go upstairs, Xiaoming and Fei Yu'er went to the palace together. Back at the palace, Fei Yu'er couldn't wait to summon the singers. She was going to show her design tomorrow, which made her a little nervous, and because it is too private, Xiaoming will not be able to enter the place where clothes are displayed at that time, so she can only handle it herself during this period. After a whole night of tossing, Fei Yu went directly to the Wei family restaurant the next day. Chapter 444, A Lady and Number 039, S Imagination. Wei's restaurant. After Princess Pingayang stayed here, the upper and lower levels of the Wei family restaurant were replaced by maids, and both the former shopkeeper and the shopkeeper temporarily avoided. After all, Princess Pingayang has a noble status, which makes it very inappropriate for men to be here. The most important thing is that what Fei Yu'er will show here is very private. Princess Qi, you mysterious, what are you trying to show us? Princess Pingayang had just taken a shower, and she felt lazy. Because the bed she slept on was too comfortable, she slept until the sun reached the treetops before getting up. At this time, the ladies also all came down and gathered to the first floor. Like Princess Pingayang, they all looked at Fei Yu'er and waited for Fei Yu'er to show off the women's products in their hearts. Fei Yu'er was still a little nervous, but when she remembered what Xiaoming said, she took a deep breath and said, "Auntie, what I'm going to show you this time is called underwear. I think everyone uses belly bands in clothes like underwear." As soon as Fei Yu'er's words were spoken, the faces of many ladies immediately turned red. This Fei Yu'er said something that made them very ashamed. Who would talk about these personal clothes on weekdays? Of course we women can't miss these things. Compared with other noble ladies, Princess Pingayang was much bolder and outspoken. One is Princess Pingayang's character, and the other is Princess Pingayang, who supported Fei Yu'er in the scene. This time Fei Yu'er sent her a special letter to ask her to come to King Zhao. In her opinion, this is definitely not something Fei Yu'er can do, and there is naturally the shadow of Xiaoming behind it. Because of this, her aunt should support the scene for Fei Yu'er. After all, this is also a kind of goodwill. Looking at Princess Pingayang gratefully, what Fei Yu'er feared most was that these ladies would be dissatisfied with her. After all, this incident really made Cao panic. Now Princess Pingayang's words have calmed down a kind of lady. Thinking about what she said to her last night, Fei Yu'er said loudly, "What I want to show you today is to make us women more comfortable, close to the body, and also make us clothes with more glamour." Having said that, Fei Yu'er looked behind the stage and clapped her hands lightly. With the sound of her clapping, 30 singers came to the stage wearing underwear of different colors and styles. When these singers appeared, all the mainlanders, including Princess Pingayang, looked at these strange-looking singers in shock. "Odd, what is this?" someone exclaimed. "Hee. The things in front of this singer really look like steamed buns. This time I came to King Zhao, it was really a vision. I didn't expect Princess Qi to be so different, and she actually took out such a female celebrity." Princess Pingayang's eyes were fixed on the singers who were showing this kind of close-fitting clothes on the stage, and she suddenly said, "Don't you think these singers are very beautiful in these clothes?" The ladies were only frightened by this novel costume at first, but at this time, it seems that the singer at this time has a unique charm. A lady said, "The princess said so, but I think this dress is really good. It's very flamboyant to wear on these singers." "Bah, you are not ashamed to speak. How can you say such vulgar words in front of the princess and the princess?" Although a lady said this, she obviously agreed with the lady's words, because every piece of clothes they wear leaks more than these clothes. As soon as the two spoke, the ladies laughed, and they pointed to the singers on the stage, talking and laughing, and from time to time they judged which of these singers looked good in their clothes. Princess Pingayang was not surprised by the appearance of these noble ladies for a long time. She said to Fei Yu'er, "Princess Qi, this is why you want to sew these kinds of intimate clothing." Fei Yu'er was already prepared and expected the reaction of these ladies. Now that there are only women left, she said bluntly, "Auntie, the upper body of these singers is called a bra, and its main function is to prevent sagging." "Sagging? What sagging?" Princess Pingayang said, and then reacted immediately. She glared at Fei Yu'er. "You girl, everyone knows you are a talented girl, but how do you know that this thing can prevent that?" Fei Yu'er said solemnly, "Auntie, this is not Yu'er's nonsense, but a factual basis." Then she called a singer in front of her and took off the bra from the singer. At this time, Fei Yu pointed to the singer's chest and said, "Your Highness, please take a look." When the princess saw it, she was stunned for a moment. When the singer first came down, she felt that the singer had big breasts, but when Fei Yu took off her bra, she couldn't help laughing. As Fei Yu'er said, "This bra really made the singer's chest very upturned. I didn't expect this bra to have this function." Princess Pingayang said with a smile. Fei Yu'er pursed her lips and chuckled, and began to tell Princess Pingayang what she had learned from books. "Auntie, this woman's development started at this time when she was 13 or 14 years old. It's very easy at this time." Recalling the contents of the book, Fei Yu'er's words were endless, and the ladies who were still laughing suddenly felt that what Fei Yu'er said was very reasonable. What kind of changes happened to her body at what age? Fei Yu'er said it is clear. Originally, she thought that Fei Yu'er took out this thing just to sell money, but after Fei Yu'er finished speaking, they suddenly felt that Fei Yu'er was thinking about the women of Dayue. "And after wearing this, we are no longer afraid of riding and falling. Simply put, we can run and jump like men without being seen by others." Fei Yu concluded, "And every month when we get there we can put the brocade in it, and the panties are guaranteed not to fall off, so that there is no blood left." At this moment, all the ladies looked expectant. Fei Yu'er was right, and they were really thinking the same as what Fei Yu'er said. A lady immediately said, "Princess, can you let me try it?" "Of course." Fei Yu'er pursed her lips and smiled. She felt that she had persuaded these noble ladies, and even Princess Pingayang showed a very interested look. After picking up a new set of underwear, Fei Yu asked the singer to help the lady put it on. The lady thought she had a bad figure. After putting on these clothes, she put on the original clothes again. Suddenly, the other ladies exclaimed, "Hey, how did you get bigger?" Others looked at it one after another, and sure enough, this lady was basically flat, but now she straightened up immediately after putting on a bra. "I'm going to try too." Seeing this, the other ladies asked in succession. Chapter 445, A Great Success. P.S. There are 2 more chapters to update. The whole Wei family restaurant became noisy. The ladies completely let go of their restraint at this time, and they all rushed to the stage to try on various bras and panties. At this time, Fei Yu asked the maid to move a large mirror to the stage at the right time. Through this large mirror, these ladies can really see the effect of wearing these new clothes. Some ladies even start to look good in front of the mirror and keep turning around, because after wearing this, they can better show their charming body. Fei Yu'er has been deeply influenced by Xiaoming since she came to King's Hao, and she sees this opportunity to say, sometimes for men, the beauty of holding a pipa and half-covered face will make them more like it, and these clothes can obviously also play a role in this effect. The ladies were even more convinced when they heard the words, which of the dignitaries in Chang'an was not 3 wives and 4 concubines? Although they were the main family, they sometimes felt very resentful when they saw their husbands go out with their concubines all day long. They thought about Fei Yu'er's words at this moment, and they thought about it. Not to mention that this clothing has such or such benefits for women. Even if they want to compete for a favor, they have to buy it. A noble lady asked at this time, Princess, how can I sell this thing? I want 10 sets. I want it too. Give me 20 sets, and I will give it away when I go back. This time I will go back and make the little fox spirits in my family envy to death. The ladies rejoiced one by one, chatting non-stop. Princess Pingyang smiled at Fei Yu'er at this time. Princess Qi, it seems that these female celebrities of yours are very popular, and Ben Gong also likes them very much. How about you prepare some for Ben Gong this time? Auntie wants it, and Yu'er is naturally bound to do so. In the past 2 days, Yu'er will prepare it for her. Fei Yu'er said the promotion of underwear this time was in the plan. Now Fei Yu'er is very satisfied with such a result. But her purpose is not to sell clothes to these ladies today, she continued, but Aunt doesn't have to worry. Yu'er is going to open a shop in Chang'an that specializes in selling this kind of clothing, and then Aunt will be able to buy it in Chang'an. Really? That's great. Princess Pingyang smiled. She basically understood. She said, when you open your store in Chang'an, your aunt will definitely come over to join us. Thank you, Auntie. Fei Yu'er said happily. The ladies on the stage were still figuring out their clothes, and Princess Pingyang also had the urge to try it on, but she was a princess after all, and she didn't want to lose her identity. Looking at these ladies with envy, Princess Pingyang said, Yu'er, how much money are you supposed to sell for a set of these clothes? It's not expensive, a set of 10 taels of silver. Fei Yu'er said 10 taels of silver? Princess Pingyang rolled her eyes. 10 taels of silver was enough to buy a padded jacket. This new type of clothing is very expensive. She said, this kind of thing has so little fabric, will this price? Fei Yu'er seemed to have expected it for a long time, and Fei Yu'er said, Auntie, although this kind of clothing is small, it is supported by steel wires. Otherwise, this bra will be no different from ordinary cloth wire? Pingyang was startled. What is this? Yu'er doesn't know either. This is something produced by the King's Hao Iron and Steel Workshop. His Highness said that it belongs to Spring Steel. This kind of thing can't be found anywhere in the Great Yu Kingdom. Princess Pingyang picked up a bra and pinched it. There was indeed something hard inside to support it. At this time, she nodded and said, so it is after successfully promoting the underwear. Fei Yu'er smiled knowingly. This time the task that Xiaoming gave him was successfully completed. As for a set of clothing, she could earn thousands of taels just from the purchase of these ladies, and these ladies were only part of the Chang'an ladies. In addition to Chang'an, there are also ladies from various vassal kings' fiefs. In this way, this kind of clothing will provide King's Hao with a lot of income. Thinking of this, she is more and more happy accompanying Princess Pingyang and the ladies to experience various types of underwear. The ladies were willing to let Fei Yu go back. This time they came to King's Hao for a long time. After saying goodbye to Princess Pingyang, Fei Yu returned to the palace happily. At this time, Xiaoming was writing a book in the palace. Seeing this, he asked, how is the promotion of the underwear you designed? They don't like it at all. Fei Yu'er said with a deliberately deflated mouth. Xiaoming looked at Fei Yu'er. Although this girl looked very aggrieved, her eyes flashed with excitement. He said, you can't even lie. This time it must be a success, Ben. The king said it would definitely succeed. I can't hide anything from your highness. Fei Yu'er leaned on Xiaoming affectionately. His royal highness likes it very much, as do other powerful ladies. They bought all the underwear that the concubines took out this time. Now, the concubine earned more than 5,000 taels of silver. When she spoke, Fei Yu'er blushed. Obviously it was the first time she made money that gave her a sense of accomplishment. That's right, it's not bad that you're the king's concubine. Xiao Ming looked at Fei Yu'er with a smile. Just as concubine Zhen said, this Fei Yu'er was really his inner helper, but remembering something, he asked, "And he didn't ask anything else?" "I didn't ask much about the others, I just said that the clothes were too expensive," so the concubine told her what His Highness said. Fei Yu'er said. Xiao Ming nodded. "Well, very good, so many people understand that it is impossible to make this kind of intimate clothing just by imitating the style in a society where men and women weave like the Great Yu Kingdom. Women usually weave and sew their own clothes. These things are not a problem for them, so he asked Fei Yu'er to reveal the words in advance, and let the production of underwear contain some difficulty. In fact, this is indeed the case. The underwear that Fei Yu sews is made of steel wire, but not spring steel wire. He deliberately preached it like this. However, even for steel wire, other parts of Daya country cannot produce steel wire of King's Hao quality level. In addition, in order to assist in the production of underwear, he specially selected a group of craftsmen to produce steel wire. Of course, he can't realize the industry of steel wire production now. He can only let the craftsmen use a very primitive process and pass molten steel through very thin mold holes. Thin strips of steel are then drawn through finer dies, but even so, the wire produced is very limited. But fortunately the quality of these wires is barely enough to make underwear, and just based on this, he doesn't worry that others can copy his own things. Now that the underwear sales are successful, Xiao Ming thinks that he can make a profit immediately. After all, the finances are tight now. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 446 Negotiation. Bottom line. The north wind rolled snowflakes and fell on the smooth concrete road in King's Hao City. The gray ground was stained with a layer of white, which means that the New Year's Day is approaching. Princess Pingayang has been playing in King's Hao since she learned about the underwear launched by Fei Yu. She didn't choose to go back to Chang'an until half a month later. After all, she was going to spend the New Year in Chang'an before leaving. Princess Pingayang urged Xiao Ming not to forget the construction of the princess's house. To this, Xiao Ming is naturally full of promises. In a modern country, even by attracting rich people to settle down to stimulate economic development, he naturally has to make good use of it. Fei Yu'er has been with Princess Pingayang for the past 2 weeks. After becoming a princess, Fei Yu'er gradually assumed a responsibility that belonged to a princess. This is lady diplomacy, and Xiao Ming is not idle either. Now that King's Hao's finances are tight, he has to seize any way to increase the income of the government, so he asked Luluo to make a large number of underwear, and then asked Li Keitong to take these underwear to Chang'an. When Princess Pingayang was eating, drinking and having fun in King's Hao, she naturally agreed to help herself sell this kind of intimate clothing in Chang'an. She is the fashion vein of Chang'an. As long as she uses it, this kind of thing will soon be popular in Chang'an City. Another source of income has been added to the government office. Pang Yukin is naturally happy, and because the underwear production and textile workshop has recruited 300 people, this has made the lives of 300 refugees more secure, and they have made money. The local economy has also developed after sending Princess Pingayang away. Xiao Ming planned to spend a year in King's Hao with Fei Yu'er, but he never thought that an uninvited guest would come to King's Hao. This person is none other than Rhodes, who met Xiao Ming in Deng's Hao City. The guy who claimed to be the Dutch ambassador Rod has seen His Royal Highness King Qi in the main hall. Rhodes respectfully bowed to Xiao Ming, and after receiving Claire's order, he entered the hinterland of the Great Yu Kingdom again in Deng's Hao City. He expressed the idea of meeting King Qi, so Yang Chang'ai sent someone to notify Xiao Ming. After getting Xiao Ming's consent, Yang Chang'ai sent someone to send Rhodes to King's Hao. No gift. Ambassador Rhodes, since you came to King's Hao, I think you must have changed your original mind. This king also doesn't want to use war to resolve Ryukyu, but sometimes the negotiation breaks down and we have to take action. Rhodes' eyes were deep. After arriving at King's Hao City, he had been observing the city. After seeing King's Hao City's clean concrete roads, orderly underground pipes, and soldiers with flintlock guns at the gate of the city, he suddenly felt a sense of frustration, because he didn't even know what this King's Hao pavement was. Although he learned from the people of King's Hao that it was cement, it seemed that there was no such thing as cement in Europe. Respected His Royal Highness King Qi, Earl Clare also doesn't want to resolve the conflict between us through war, so this time I sent me to King Zhao to discuss with His Highness again about Ryukyu and the route. Xiao Ming nodded. Then how is your Earl Clare going to handle this? For him, if he can recover Ryukyu peacefully, he naturally does not want to start a war. After all, every war costs him a lot. Count Clare is willing to give up the island of Ryukyu, but the Count hopes that His Royal Highness will allow us to keep the city of Duranja in the Netherlands, which is the last entity of our Netherlands. Rhodes said with a Rolanza city? Xiao Ming frowned. This Rolanza city was built on an island on the eastern side of the Ryukyu island. The Dutch port was built on this place at the same time. There is a city on this small island, and Wang Zhuan has already told him this information. That's right, it's the city of Rolanza. We also have a bastion on the island of Ryukyu called Minsk across the sea. We are willing to hand Minsk and the island of Ryukyu to His Highness. Hearing this, Xiao Ming fell into silence. He could not allow others to sleep peacefully on the side of the couch. It was always an uneasy factor for the Dutch to maintain their armed forces in the city of Duranja. He said, no, the city of Duranja must also be returned. Rod's eyes flashed with anger, but he chose to suppress after understanding the strength of this King Qi, and he said in a deep voice, His Royal Highness King Qi, this is our last bottom line. How can His Royal Highness King Qi not have any dignity at all? Leave it to us the Dutch, then we'll only see each other on the battlefield. Frowning his brows, Xiao Ming said, I haven't finished what this king has said. All the territory of Ryukyu belongs to this king, and this cannot be negotiated, but after you admit that Ryukyu belongs to this king can transform the city of Duranja into a trading port, and you Dutch merchants can do business as before, except that your warships and garrison must be withdrawn from the city of Duranja, and replaced by this king's soldiers and fleet. Is this any different from returning Rolanza city? Rhodes' heart was icy cold. Of course there is a difference, so at least your Dutch merchant ships can still travel to and from Ryukyu, otherwise you will lose everything forever. Xiao Ming said unceremoniously, remember, you are invaders, so you can still participate in East Asia's trade. You should be lucky. Regarding Ryukyu, Xiao Ming, he did not intend to discuss too much with the Dutch, and he did not need to be kind in the face of the invaders. Rhodes was silent, as he guessed when he came, they encountered a very powerful vassal king, and this made them almost desperate. After a long time, he said, I'm sorry, His Royal Highness, King Qi. I think this matter needs to be discussed with Earl Clare for the last time. After that, we will decide whether to agree to His Highness's conditions, of course, but I'm afraid you don't have much time. I hope you can make this decision quickly. According to the plan, the fleet will go south in March after the Chinese New Year. Rhodes nodded, and he asked, I take the liberty to ask Your Highness, what exactly is this cement? Can Your Highness allow me to visit the factory in Qingzhou, so that we may get to know each other better, and maybe we can deepen it in the future? Cooperation. Hearing this, Xiao Ming smiled. At this time, the Dutch still wanted to see his true strength. He said, cement is an excellent building material, which is very common in Qingzhou. Since the ambassador is interested, this king will take the ambassador to visit. In contemporary times, the first batch of cement in Europe was only produced in 1796. According to Rhodes, according to the time point, there is really no such thing as cement in Europe. After all, Xiao Ming asked people to prepare horses, and he took Rhodes to the streets of Qingzhou. A red-haired, blue-eyed foreigner suddenly appeared on the street, and the people immediately ran away in fright. Some people even shouted monster, which made Rhodes very depressed. Chapter 447. Newcomen steam engine. The two walked along the hard road of Qingzhou City to the workshop area, and Rhodes was watched like an animal along the way leading Rhodes. The two went to the workshop area, where the craftsmen were building new workshops. There was a pile of cement, sand, and stones beside the building under construction. Xiao Ming brought Rhodes over. The craftsmen immediately stopped their work and stood there respectfully. Xiao Ming stepped forward and grabbed a handful of cement and said to Rhodes, this is cement. It is mixed with water, sand and stones. Several things are mixed together. After 3 or 4 days, the hardness will be the same as the road just now. Rhodes looked at what looked like flour, and he couldn't believe it. He then looked at a few craftsmen who were mixing concrete. This road is so hard, do you rely on it? Yes, don't underestimate it, don't think that only you in Europe can have such a magical thing. After speaking, Xiao Ming went to the concrete mixing place and picked up a few hard lumps and returned to Rhodes. You try, let's see. This is a cement block that hasn't solidified for a long time. It's not hard enough, but after a few days it's hard to cut with a sword. Rhodes took it, and it took a lot of strength in his hands to knead the cement block into powder, and he was horrified. He used to think that the Great Yu Kingdom was just a backward civilization. Even if this King Qi had flintlock guns and artillery, he was just learning from Europe. But now everything is wrong. It is incredible that there is something here that is not found in Europe. This cement was just a small episode. Xiao Ming knew that what Rode wanted to see was not the people's livelihood, so he brought Rode to the King Zhao army. After seeing the equipment and training of the King Zhao army again, Rhodes was in bad shape. When walking in the barracks, his body was shaking, and Lu Fei and others seemed to train hard in order to deter Rhodes. After that, Xiao Ming took Rhodes to the equipment department again, and the military workshop looked at the military industry foundation of King Zhao like watching flowers. After reading these things, Rhodes was like a defeated cock. Ambassador Rhodes, how is this King Zhao? Xiao Ming asked with a smile. After walking around a few places, Rhodes' smile was a little reluctant. He said, His Royal Highness is beyond my expectations. After I go back, I will talk to Earl Clare about Ryukyu Island. Xiao Ming nodded, and he knew from Rhodes' expression that Rhodes was shocked. The reason why he took Rhodes to visit these places was to subdue the soldiers without fighting. Now that the attitude of the Dutch has softened, if you scare them again, this Ryukyu cannot be taken back without a fight. Seemingly stimulated, Rhodes had no plans to stay in King Zhao. He had a gloomy face along the way and didn't know what he was thinking. Seeing this, Xiao Ming said, Ambassador Rhodes, it's almost time for dinner. Why don't you go to the palace for dinner? No, I think I have to rush back. All right then. Xiao Ming said, but he didn't want to entertain the arrogant Dutch. Rhodes declined the invitation, and went to Deng Zhao under the protection of the sergeant on the same day, preparing to rush back to Ryukyu. Watching Rhodes leave, Xiao Ming turned around and prepared to go back, when he saw Liang Yubin riding a horse head-on in front of Xiao Ming. Liang Yubin said excitedly, Your Highness, Lin Wentao created a steam engine. Pumping steam engine? Xiao Ming was stunned when he heard the words. Could it be a Newcomen steam engine? Thinking of this, he immediately Liang Yubin went to Bowen College. When he arrived at Bowen College, Liang Yubin directly led Xiao Ming to the laboratory of the School of Physics. At this time, the laboratory was surrounded by students from the academy, and everyone was paying attention to the new things that Lin Wentao came up with. Good. The steam engine in front of Xiao Ming is just a simple steam engine model, not a full-scale steam engine. The steam engine consists of two parts. One is a conical boiler, which belongs to the steam engine, and the other part is connected to the pumping part through the connecting rod. Pull up. The successful development of the steam engine has lifted the spirits of the students in the academy. Lin Wentao was full of tears. After the last explosion, he finally researched the Newcomen steam engine. Although the steam engine can only be used to lift water, it is not a real double steam engine, but this is the progress of King Zhao and the School of Physics. Wentao, you have done a great job. Xiao Ming patted Du Haiping's shoulder. So far, the difficulty of this steam engine is undoubtedly the greatest. After all, this is a direct jump from the poor and the white to such a complex device. As a steam engine, Lin Wentao has to solve not only the problem of steam, but also the problem of connecting rod. He said, Tell me, what kind of reward do you want? Lin Wentao said at this time, His Royal Highness, I don't want any reward. This Newcomen steam engine is just the most basic steam engine. Please reward me when I make a compound steam engine. Xiao Ming nodded. He was very satisfied. Now Lin Wentao has changed from studying steam engines for the sake of his title to loving science itself. He said, Okay, this king promises you. Although Lin Wentao didn't want anything this time, Xiao Ming still rewarded him with 1,000 taels of silver. He wanted to show other students that as long as they worked hard, everything was possible. The basic model of the Newcomen steam engine was successfully developed. Xiao Ming immediately asked Lin Wentao to study the construction of a Newcomen steam pump for the mine. Considering the current number of mining farms, Xiao Ming needs more than 30 water pumps at a time. The field can dig further down. After all, many minerals in his fief belong to deep mines. Once the mine is submerged by water, construction cannot be carried out. Now that the Newcomen steam engine is available, he can increase the efficiency of mining many times. However, at this time, the Newcomen steam engine was only the most primitive steam engine, and it consumed a lot of coal, so it was only suitable for use in mines. The new year is approaching. Xiao Ming did not expect Bowen College to give him such a surprise at this time. He plans to put the construction of the Newcomen steam engine on the agenda, and at the same time let the equipment department cooperate with Lin Wentao to build a real steam engine. After all, what Lin Wentao is experimenting with is only a small model made by him, And the real restoration still requires the cooperation of a large number of craftsmen. After complimenting Lin Wentao and others, Xiao Ming excitedly returned to the palace. Although the Newcomen steam engine was the simplest steam engine, the later steam engine was continuously improved through the steam engine to obtain the later Watt steam engine. Science is not an overnight pursuit, but a step-by-step exploration. Now that Lin Wentao has found the door to a steam engine, he believes that it will not take long for him to develop a real steam engine. Chapter 448 Year-End Reconciliation. After 3 days of light snow, it suddenly turned into heavy snow overnight. King's Hao was once again covered with a layer of lustrous white, but unlike in previous years, the merchants refused to stop their voices even in the cold and snow. There are endless merchant ships passing by on the dock. They unload coal, iron ore, cotton, grain, fur, saltpeter, sulfur and other commodities, and then transfer out the soap, glass, fine wine, cotton-padded clothes, coal boil stove and other commodities produced in King's Hao. They all want to make a lot of money during the Chinese New Year. After all, for businessmen, the New Year is the hottest days for business. Your Highness, the intimate clothes designed by the princess are really popular in Chang'an. The 8,000 sets of clothes we trafficked to Chang'an this time were sold completely, and we made a total of 80,000 taels of silver. Every Chinese New Year is the time for the fiefs to audit their accounts. For the past 2 days, he and Pang Yukin have been busy with this matter, while summarizing the lessons of 1 year and laying out plans for the next year. For this matter, he asked Pang Yukin to have all the 6 state government offices and the Yaozhou government offices added this year go to King's Hao for reconciliation. In addition to the government office, the military, chambers of commerce, mines, shipyards, military workshops and other institutions are no exception. In order to avoid officials' corruption and bribery, Xiao Ming has always maintained a high-pressure situation in this matter. In the future, the audit of the accounts will be carried out every year. After reviewing the accounts of the Chamber of Commerce verified by the government office, Xiao Ming picked up the pen and signed his name and stamped his own big seal. The accounts of the Chamber of Commerce were approved. 80,000 taels of silver? Well, yes, this is only from Chang'an. If it is sold in other places, it will be a considerable income. Xiao Ming said His Royal Highness is absolutely right. Now the cotton jackets and clothes of the textile mill are sold well in other places in the Great Yu Kingdom. Our prices are cheap and the quality is higher. We just made 300,000 taels of silver this year. With this new type of clothing, the next official estimates that the textile workshop will earn at least 2 million taels of silver a year next year. Li Keun analyzed. Xiao Ming nodded in agreement. The textile workshop was just established this year, and most of the time it was producing military uniforms for the King's Hao army. Only in the second half of the year did foreign trade begin taking advantage of the fact that Jinling, Jizhao, Chang'an and other places do not collect taxes. His products have an absolute advantage in price. After signing, Xiao Ming handed over the accounts of the Chamber of Commerce to Li Keun, and Li Keun suddenly felt relieved. The audit of the accounts at the end of this year is the most tense time for the entire fief. If there are any mistakes in the accounts, don't think about a comfortable year. There were some problems with the accounts sent from Yizhao 2 days ago. The governor of Yizhao, Yan Changhao, was ordered to immediately come to King's Hao to reconcile the accounts in person. If there's really a problem with the accounts, Yan Changhao will be miserable. The textile mill is booming now, but other products can't be ignored. This year, the sales of soap and liquor are still normal. The Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce brings in 3 million taels of income, but the sales of this glass have dropped a lot. Xiao Ming frowned as he recalled the data in the accounts. Li Keun explained, His Royal Highness, there is nothing you can do. Soap and liquor are all consumables. You have to buy them when you run out. But this mirror may not need to be replaced for a long time. If you want to expand sales, you must find new ones. The market is the only way. The official dared to ask His Royal Highness when we can conduct maritime trade. Mentioning this, Xiao Ming frowned. Rhodes has just left, and he is not sure whether the Dutch will accept this negotiation condition, but after Rhodes saw the strength of King's Hao, he believes that the Dutch will have a new understanding of him. In fact, from the very beginning he did not intend to completely drive the Dutch away, otherwise he would not negotiate with the Dutch at all. The reason for the negotiation is to prevent the two sides from completely tearing their faces. Compared with the conditions in Dengzhou City, this time Rhodes came to King's Hao and lowered his requirements for the Dutch. He has allowed the Dutch to maintain their presence in Jiangsu City. The only thing the Dutch need to do is that they cannot retain such a strong military force in Jiangsu City, because he will not station too many troops in Ryukyu in the future. If 100% of the Dutch army stays in Garanja City, this will be the case would be a threat to him. His minimum is that the Dutch retain the necessary self-defense weapons in Garanja, but negotiation is like buying something. First of all, the price must be seen to the unacceptable level of the other party and then slowly bargain. If you can get a low price, it could not be better. This can only be determined after the negotiation is over. Xiao Ming said to Li Kaiyan, but it won't be too long. We will win the Australian trade route in April next year at the most. Li Kaiyan smiled and said, hey, then the lower official is waiting for good news. After saying that, he turned back and left. Turning to the next account, Xiao Ming reviewed it again. This is the army account. It lists the army's food consumption, ammunition consumption, and equipment purchases for 1 year. The huge expenditures on the account made him tremble a little. This army is really a big money-hungry family. He finally understands why a country should continue to cut its military in peacetime, because its finances will be dragged down by the army. After auditing the accounts for half a month, Xiao Ming's third Spring Festival in this world finally came. This time is different from the Spring Festival of the previous 2 years. He has a wife who will be with him for life, and a person who can spend the Spring Festival together on New Year's Eve. Xiao Ming took Fei Yu'er and the servants of the palace to celebrate the festival together, and the officials also celebrated the New Year in their respective homes. Last year, Xiao Ming asked them to relieve their boredom because Kuman was alone. In fact, they still wanted to reunite with their families for the New Year. A sumptuous meal was prepared, followed by a series of projects such as fireworks performances and dramas. The palace was lively, and everyone had smiles on their faces. Your Highness, these fireworks are really beautiful. Looking at the fireworks exploding over the palace, Fei Yu'er's eyes flashed with psychedelic colors. Yet, just as beautiful as you. Xiao Ming's tongue flickered, but this made Fei Yu'er smile sweetly. At this time, he and Fei Yu'er stood side by side, with brilliant fireworks and a deep night sky above their heads, and stunning beauty beside them, drunk lying on the knees of a beauty, waking up to take control of the world. This scene made him suddenly feel a sense of heroism in his heart. He also looked at the sky, but Xiao Ming's eyes were the sea of stars. If he lives one more life, he should live his life wantonly and leave no regrets. Closing his eyes, Xiao Ming seemed to be able to see a little bit of light like stars. This was the evidence that the technology spar existed in his mind. He struggled for the past 2 years and finally gained a foothold. In the next time, he will truly play the role of the maker of his own civilization and lead his civilization to glory. Chapter 449 Final Negotiation. Greenland covers the city. The cold north wind blew, and Claire tightened his windbreaker. Rhodes stood by his side and described his experiences in Kingshao to him one by one. Generally speaking, the development of this fief of King Ki is a little deformed. They have a strong military base, but the people's livelihood industry is far behind Europe. The people of Kingshao are more civilized than other places, but they can't compare with Europe. Rhodes recalled what he saw in Kingshao. Claire frowned. This King Ki was really born for the war. He invested too much money in the war but neglected the foundation of a country, while our Netherlands, on the contrary, invested too much money in social welfare. The threat of war has been ignored in terms of people's livelihood, which has led to the current predicament. Speaking of which, we can really complement each other. Rhodes laughed at himself. But do we really have to agree to King Ki's request to withdraw the army from Relanza City? In this case, our merchant ships have lost their protection. After Rhodes talked about the negotiation process and the subsequent inspection of Kingshao, Claire's expression relaxed, and he said to Rhodes, Rod, you are still suitable for being a businessman rather than a politician. This King Ki is very unusual. It's just his negotiation, and now he's just using the minimum to test our reaction. If he really doesn't leave us a little leeway, he won't continue to waste time with you. Rhodes froze for a while. He was just a staff member of a Dutch trading company. The Dutch ambassador's status was just to facilitate dealings with surrounding countries. He shrugged, and he asked, I don't think so. This King Ki is very tough. The side with the upper hand will always be tough, but I think it is necessary to make a final attempt. We are all nobles, and we may have something in common. Claire laughed. Well, let's go to Deng Xiao again, can we? Let's talk about achievements and see this time. Rhodes sighed. Lord Count, why are we negotiating with them? Maybe we won't lose anything through war. No, you are wrong, we will lose more. Claire's eyes were deep. He looked at Saka, who was holding a matchlock gun under the city, and said, the ambition of the Japanese country is expanding day by day, and this beast we raised will eventually be swallowed up. We ourselves, and now the British tentacles are also extending to East Asia. The British are too powerful. Our fleet is not an opponent, so we need an ally. Rhodes nodded and said, in that case, I hope God can give us good luck this time. After speaking, Rhodes went down from the prefect's office to the city. Ambassador Rhodes, how's it going? Are we going to fight? We can't wait. Sakai licked his lips, and his slender triangular eyes flashed dangerously. Rhodes said, we have no plan to go to war with King Ki, and this King Ki is very powerful. Sakai rolled his eyes, so you're ready to continue negotiating? This is a stupid decision. Please pay attention to your words, Sakai. We paid a lot of money to hire you, not to let you participate in our decision-making. Rhodes' words contained a strong warning. Like Claire, they all felt that Sakai was trying to interfere with their decision in East Asia, and behind this, the shadow of Yamada Nobunaga was looming, and they always hoped that the Dutch and the Great Yu would go to war. Perhaps Claire is right. They should be more wary of the Japanese expansion ambitions. After 2 days of preparation, Claire led the fleet to the north again, and 7 days later they reached the outer sea of Dengzhou City again. Kingzhou. After the Chinese New Year, the government office quickly resumed operation. In fact, due to the lack of entertainment activities, the New Year's Day in the Great Yu Kingdom only lasted for 3 or 4 days. After the lively time, the people hid in their homes and roasted cold balls. Reluctant to come out during the Chinese New Year, Xiao Ming was really at ease. He accompanied Fei Yu'er to play around Kingzhou City, and the two of them were very relaxed and leisurely until Dengzhou received news again, this time Count Claire. Xiao Ming chewed on the suffix of the name. Even in Europe, the title of Earl is rare, and in the Netherlands, Claire is also a respected person. It has been more than a month since the last negotiation, and it seems that Claire arrived in Dengzhou in person this time to draw an end to the negotiation. After pondering for a while, he said to the station general who came to report, you go ahead and tell Earl Claire that this king will go to Dengzhou to meet him in person, and let him stay in Dengzhou for a few days. Yes, Your Highness. The postmaster nodded and turned to leave. When the post was about to leave, Fei Yu'er said, Your Highness is going out again. Yes, this negotiation is very important. If we can negotiate success, we can avoid a war. Xiao Ming said. When Fei Yu heard this, she knew that this matter was of great importance, and she said, sensible. Since this is the case, the concubine will ask the servant to pack the things for His Highness. Don't you want to go, Princess? Xiao Ming said with a smile. Me too. Fei Yu'er was a little surprised. Xiao Ming nodded. I'm afraid there are still a lot of things to deal with in Dengzhou this time, and you need to live for a while. The princess might as well go with this king, so you can also see what the Dutch are like. Fei Yu'er heard the words happily and said, Yes, Your Highness, the concubine will go back to prepare. After all, she trotted all the way back to the dormitory with her skirt in hand to pack her things. Seeing this, Xiao Ming smiled helplessly. After all, Fei Yu'er was deeply influenced by the 3 cards and 5 persistences of the Great Yu Kingdom, and always adhered to the idea of women not going out at home. If Xiao Ming didn't say it, she wouldn't take the initiative to mention it. Now that Xiao Ming said so, she was naturally overjoyed. After packing up, Xiao Ming went to Dengzhou under the protection of 5,000 musketeers the next day, and 3 days later, he returned to Dengzhou again. His Royal Highness, Earl Claire is already waiting at the mansion. As soon as he entered Dengzhou City, Yang Chengai immediately reported the situation of the Dutch to Xiao Ming. This time the Dutch did not send soldiers to the city, but Lord and Claire entered Dengzhou City with 4 soldiers. Nodding his head, he said to Fei Yu'er, Princess, you can go and rest for a while. This king will go to meet the Dutch first. Yes, Your Highness, Fei Yu'er said softly in the sedan chair. Following Yang Chengai, Xiao Ming returned to the Dengzhou government office again after 2 months. At this time, he saw Rhodes and a slightly fat but graceful European. His Royal Highness King Ki, this is Earl Claire, the Dutch governor of East Asian affairs. Rhodes said respectfully while Xiao Ming was looking at Claire. Claire was also looking at Xiao Ming. At this time, he said, It is an honor to meet you, His Royal Highness King Ki. Chapter 450 Argument. Standard aristocratic etiquette and conversation proved that Claire was a veritable aristocrat. Rhodes acted as a translator between the two at this time, and he translated Claire's words to Xiao Ming. Xiao Ming nodded lightly, stretched out his hand and motioned for Claire to sit down. He said, Welcome to the Great Yu Kingdom in Dengzhou. Sitting down in response, Claire glanced at Xiao Ming again. What surprised him was that the king of the Great Yu Kingdom was so young, and he began to understand why the king of Qi was so tough in his cognition. Young people have always been impatient, but always warm-blooded and impulsive. After being silent for a while, he first said, Dear His Royal Highness King Qi, I think you are very clear about the purpose of our visit this time. Regarding the Ryukyu issue, I hope to have a negotiation result that satisfies both parties. This is also my visit this time. Here's why there was a long table between the two. At this time, Rhodes and Claire were sitting on the opposite side, while Xiaoming and Yang Chang'ai were sitting on the other side, just like a modern negotiating posture. Hearing this, he said, "This king also hopes to negotiate a solution to this matter. No one likes to risk the lives of their soldiers in that case. Please allow His Royal Highness King Qi to allow us to keep the city of Relin. Besides, are we willing to agree to your other requests?" Claire said sternly. Claire said this to agree with Xiaoming's leading trade routes in East Asia, and at the same time only trade between Deng Zhao and Ryukyu. But just like Rhodes last time he came to King Zhao, Claire also refused to withdraw the Dutch soldiers from Relanza city. Xiaoming tapped the table with his fingers, and his eyes swept across Claire's body. Claire's face was calm, and he could not find a trace of emotional fluctuations, and the tone of his speech was also very firm. "If you don't withdraw the garrison, then you need to give this king a reason." This time Claire's presence in person means that the negotiation will end between the two. Therefore, Xiaoming had to be cautious at this time. This Earl of Clare was much calmer than Rhodes, and he was a character that was not easy to deal with. "First of all, we can't be without the protection of the army before our safety can be guaranteed. In addition to protecting the routes of East Asia, the Ryukyu fleet also has another purpose: to prevent privateers from looting the caravan. I don't know if your highness understands anything. Is it a privateer?" Claire's words contained a temptation, and he wanted to find out whether the King Qi of the Great Yu Kingdom had profound knowledge. "Privateer?" Xiaoming frowned. "A privateer is a civilian armed vessel authorized by the state to attack another country's merchant ships, essentially state-sponsored piracy in modern times. From the 16th century to the 19th century, European powers used all means including encouraging pirates to attack other countries' ships in order to compete for maritime supremacy. Although on the surface, all countries have declared that they are incompatible with pirates, behind the scenes they wantonly recruit pirates for their own use. Armed civilian ships were created in this context. Is it a privateer from the UK and Spain?" Xiaoming said lightly. "It is said that the UK started out with a group of pirates, and it is even said that the whole of the UK is a large group of pirates. And the Queen of England is the biggest pirate leader." Claire's expression moved slightly, and he was a little surprised. King Qi's answer was exactly the same as their Dutch description of Britain and Spain. With a sigh, Claire said, "Yes, it is the privateers from these two countries. They are already seriously threatening our merchant ships, and now they are even appearing on the routes near Manila." "Okay, this is a reason," Xiaoming said, "but how do the soldiers in Relanza city explain that privateer ships are on the sea? I don't think they will attack Relanza city rashly. These soldiers are to guard against the Japanese." Claire's eyes flashed. "I'm sorry, we in the Netherlands first started trading in Nagasaki, and some businessmen who were dazzled by gold even sold the skill of the arquebus to the Japanese. In our opinion, the current Japanese state is more dangerous than the Great Yu state, because the Japanese state is very skilled at producing arquebuses, and now the Japanese state with firearms has ambitions to expand, which is very dangerous for us." When referring to the Japanese kingdom, Xiaoming's face was very ugly. He said, "Thanks to you, the Japanese kingdom is now planning to invade the Goryeo and Dayu kingdoms. This is your own fault. You should know very well that the nature of the islanders is no different from that of pirates. In Europe it's Britain, and here it's Japan. They're all the same, always thinking about robbery, murder." "I have to say that I agree with what you said." Claire suddenly laughed. "It's just a pity that your people in Great Yu also have a problem. This problem prevents us from trading with you in the first place." "Oh, what's wrong?" Xiaoming asked, arrogant. Claire was very rude. Xiaoming nodded. "This king admits that this was a mistake, but it seems pointless to discuss this now. Let's go back to the topic of negotiation. Isn't that enough to explain why we keep the garrison?" Claire said yes, but you can only keep 2,000 people and 4 battleships. Xiaoming said with a smile. Claire was startled. The real Dutch garrison on Ryukyu Island was only 2,000 people. The King Qi's vision was very vicious, and he believed that King Qi also knew the information about the city of Relin. Now, 8 of the 12 warships in Ryukyu were originally colonized by Manila. It was only in order to stop the adventurous actions of King Chu that he mobilized another 8 warships from Manila to Ryukyu. "It seems that your highness has understood everything." Claire smiled bitterly. Xiaoming sneered. "For these Europeans, they no longer care about the life and death of the indigenous army, and it is easy to use these indigenous forces to take risks. With this in mind, he made Claire remain in the pure Dutch army, so that the Dutch would have to even think about it before starting a war in order to reduce casualties. This is already the bottom line of this king. At the same time, I will also send 2,000 soldiers to the city of Raylan to protect you. Xiao Ming smiled maliciously, then he looked at Claire and waited for Claire's answer, frowning tightly. Claire's eyes wandered. He knew exactly what King Qi's purpose was. He was testing whether they were sincere. After a long silence, he hesitated and said, "Okay, I accept this condition." Hearing this sentence, Xiao Ming felt relieved. This was the last test for the Dutch. If the Dutch had ghosts, they would naturally not accept his request to garrison in the city of Jiranja. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.